Very much for joining us this evening. It is April 27th. We have our regular council meeting. You'll notice my face looks a little bit different than the one that's normally sitting in this chair for a regular council meeting. Mayor Choi is away this evening, so as the deputy mayor, I get the honor of chairing the meeting, and I am sure my colleagues will help me muddle my way through that just fine. So, with that, I will go for the adoption of the agenda. I'm just going to look to administration to see if there have been any changes or modifications to it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, we were intending to move flip 4.2 and 4.1. So the intent there would be to have Community and Social Development Roundtable Community Report present first. And if Council sees fit, that would be the amendment we would propose.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, administration. Council, do we have any issues with that? Perfect. Seeing none, Councillor Palechko, I'll ask you for the motion as amended.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. The Town Council approve the Town Council adopt April 27th, 2026 regular council meeting agenda as amended.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Palechko. I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Next on our agenda is moving into the public input session. This is an opportunity where we give members of the public a chance to chat with council. Just looking to see if we have anybody in attendance tonight that would like to talk to council about anything that is not on this evening's agenda.
Through the Deputy Mayor, no one has registered this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And seeing no one stepping forward and no one registering, we will then move on to number 4 in our agenda, which is presentations and delegations. We do have 2 presentations this evening. As mentioned at the beginning, we've made a little bit of a change. So previous item 4.2 is now 4.1, and we'd like to call forward Community and Social Development Roundtable to give the community report. Please step up to the front, sign in on the sheet that's provided, and when you're ready to speak, you can press the button on the microphone. It'll light up red, so you can chat there. And if you have any issues with the IT, we've got help in the back of the room. When you're ready, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to all the members of council, thank you for the opportunity to present today. My name is Rosanna DeGroon, and I'll be providing an overview of the Community and Social Development Roundtable in 2025 and its focus, key discussions, and outcomes. I'll share how it has contributed insights and support to help strengthen community and social development in Stony Plain. So the purpose of the roundtable is to provide advice and recommendations to council on community and social development with a focus on building a sense of belonging, safety, and security, strengthening acceptance and inclusion regardless of beliefs, values, or lifestyles, helping people better understand how to access local services and supports, and empowering residents to share ideas, problem solve, and create local solutions. We support the Stony Plain Community and Social Development Department by helping more people take part in programs and events that build community, spotting opportunities to work together and strengthen community strategies, and sharing ideas and practical solutions to fill gaps in community supports. The first meeting in 2025 focused on a comprehensive orientation, including an overview of the roundtable's terms of reference. This helped us develop a clear understanding of our roles and overview purpose of the roundtable, laying a strong foundation for meaningful contributions throughout the year. The orientation also provides tools and context we need to participate effectively, offer informed recommendations, and connect our discussions to departmental actions in a more strategic and coordinated way. At the next meeting, we explored key community initiatives focused on connection and inclusion, including Nourishing Connections and the Youth Speak Summit. Through these discussions, we identified opportunities to expand participation and better reach hard-to-reach groups, such as hosting youth events on PD days, inviting school classes to participate, and offering smaller, more intimate gatherings alongside larger events. The feedback also reinforced the importance of intentional outreach and inclusive approaches, with a strong emphasis on building trust and engagement with youth, seniors, people with disabilities, Indigenous neighbors, and those experiencing social isolation. These suggestions help guide additional focus groups in 2025 and supported more inclusive and responsive community practices. In April, we focused on youth engagement and explored development asset profile that was completed in January 2025. The profile examined key building blocks that support youth well-being and long-term success in Stony Plain. The insights we shared helped inform the developmental asset profile report released in September 2025 and contributed to shaping the 2025 Engaging Youth Strategy, which provides a roadmap for youth engagement over the next 2 years. In June, we contributed to 2 key mental wellness initiatives. We received the Mental Health and Wellness Plan at a glance and provided feedback on the Forest of Hope project. Our input was included in the Forest of Hope Plan, which officially opened on September 10th for World Suicide Prevention Day. The space features many of our suggestions, including a medicine wheel garden, youth-crafted benches, UV safety lighting, and interactive messages that promote mental health and hope. This work helped raise community awareness about mental health while fostering inclusion and connection. It also contributed to creating a reflective, healing space for residents and showed the value of collaboration in supporting responsive programming. In September, we completed the United Ways Make a Month online poverty simulation, experiencing firsthand some of the challenges of living below the poverty line. The exercise created space for reflection on emotional, social, and systemic impacts of poverty. Through this experience, we explored practical solutions to improve food access, support stable housing, provide financial relief, and strengthen community support programs. These discussions helped inform actions within the Stony Plain Poverty Reduction Strategy, emphasizing human rights-based approaches, public engagement, and raising awareness of the cost of living in our community. The experience deepened our empathy and understanding, highlighted the importance of both practical and systemic supports. This strengthened the department's ability to design more inclusive and responsive initiatives. In November, we completed an evaluation of our first year. The word cloud you see here reflects our thoughts and reflections on our time with the Community and Social Development Roundtable in 2025. We reviewed the structure, facilitation, and content of the committee, sharing feedback on what worked well and what could be improved. We also reflected on what we had learned and what we had contributed and the value of our work to the department and the town. Overall, members shared that they felt our contributions had helped to strengthen a sense of community. In 2025, the Community and Social Development Roundtable met 7 times, sharing perspectives, ideas, and suggestions that we understand have helped guide departmental planning, program development, and strategic initiatives. These contributions have supported the department's effort to strengthen community belonging, foster inclusion, encourage youth engagement, and nurture resilience. We are grateful for the Roundtable's role in supporting community and social development and hopeful that together we can continue to enhance connection, inclusion, and resilience across Stony Plain. We look forward to another year of learning, sharing, and supporting the town of Stony Plain in 2026. Does the deputy mayor or council have any questions?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your presentation this evening on our Community Social Development Roundtable. And with that, I will look to council to see if we have any questions this evening. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for your report. Actually, as you went through it, a lot of my questions were answered, but I was particularly intrigued by the conclusions regarding some of the initiatives there discussed regarding smaller, intimate gatherings alongside larger groups and the opportunities to build trust there. I think personally, I like smaller groups, and I think that's actually what I would confirm, that perspective. I'm just curious what that looks like, and would I recognize any of that already to date?
I do not have an answer for your question. But can I get back to you on that one?
Maybe I'll just make sure I grab your contact and so that I can email the question to you as well.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and to Mr. Gruen, thank you for being here with us this evening. Certainly the work of CSD Roundtable is so important for our community, and you indicated so many of the things that I think are critical and speak to the importance of CSD and around belonging and safety and security and inclusion. And the work that you do as a roundtable helps guide us as a municipality to ensure that every resident feels like they're reflected in our municipality, and that's such a critical piece. I don't necessarily have a question, Mr. Deputy Mayor, but do want to pick up on what Councillor Meyer indicated, because I had underlined this as well. And I think it's a really good reminder for us around building trust in relationships. And the context to that was specific to youth and seniors, but I think sometimes, we look to the community for feedback, whether it's with our developmental asset survey for youth or, looking to our seniors to engage in different programming and so on. But sometimes we forget the importance of building social capital ahead of time and digging in and diving in and ensuring that we have invested the time and energy in building that social capital with the various stakeholder groups within our community. And I think for me, in your presentation this evening, that's a really important takeaway. That when we look at making decisions as a municipality, we need to ensure that we're taking the time, energy, and investment in the residents to build that social capital and relationship ahead of time before we're asking in response for feedback, information, and so on. And so you bring forward just a really important concept, and it's a really great reminder for us. And so thank you for being here. Thank you to the Roundtable for all the work that you continue to do.
Thank you. Any other members of council? Questions, comments? Seeing none, I believe Councillor Meyer mentioned he has a question, so Councillor Loynes is our council representative on Community Social Development Roundtable. We'll have Councillor Meyer forward it through her so that it can be answered and distributed back to the rest of the council. We'll take care of that for you that way. Appreciate you coming in this evening. Thank you very much. The work that the Community and Social Development Roundtable does on behalf of council and the recommendations and information that you provide to council is vital in assisting us with the decisions that we make and all the corporate plan initiatives and so on and so forth. And then it goes so far beyond that. All the involvement in the community, all of the work that you do with the Community and Social Development team, a small but mighty team. It's fantastic that we have community volunteers stepping up to help us out with that. So appreciate you coming in this evening and appreciate all the work that you and the board do. And I just ask that you bring back the commendations from council to the roundtable on our behalf. Wonderful.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Council.
Thank you. Have a good evening. So with that, we will move on to what is now 4.2 on our agenda. and this is the 2025 Town of Stony Plain Audited Financial Statements, and we have our auditor, Mr. Phil Dirks, here with us tonight to provide a presentation. If you'd like to step forward and sign in, Mr. Dirks, and then when you're ready, go ahead. I think most everybody on council knows you. There might be one new face, so if you'd like to provide an introduction, we can do that and then move forward with your presentation.
Thank you, if I may, Deputy Mayor. So just good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. This evening, we do have Phil Dirks in our chambers as appointed auditor from Metrics Group. This evening, he will present the financial statements and results of the audit as found in business item number 9.1. Please take the opportunity to ask any questions you may have on the presentation, as well as any of the attachments in the agenda in item 9.1, the audited financial statement, as well as the audit findings report. As a reminder to council, there's the opportunity to request time with the auditor in camera after his presentation. We'll now turn it over to Mr. Dirks for his presentation.
All right, well, good evening. And thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council, administration. I'm glad to be here this evening. My name is, as was mentioned, Phil Dirks. I'm a partner with Metrics Group, Chartered Professional Accountants, and glad to say a few words about what we do, the financial statements, answer any questions you might have, and we'll see where we go from there. My theory is, when it comes to this stuff, less is more, so I'll try to keep it at 40,000 feet, and if we need to dig deeper, we can do that. So anyways, I was just going to, before I start going any further, just mention again that this year the audit went very well again. So thanks to Terry and her team for all their assistance. It's not probably a date that everybody circles on their calendar. You know, it's a necessary evil, I guess, so to speak, but we really appreciate the cooperation. You know, we're a little bit selfish when it comes to what we're doing. We want to, you know, get things done in a hurry and do a good job, but we don't want to get the runaround, ask questions that we don't get the right answers to, or, you know, those types of things. So that's definitely not the case here. So we really appreciate that. Again, this year, accounts are well looked after and the town is still in good financial position. So that's kind of a summary. So just before we go too much further and look at the financial statements or a few items in the financial statements, I'll just try to remind you, or just briefly, again, go over what we do and maybe what we don't do. And sometimes I feel like from some of the questions I get from various people around various meetings, like, I don't think everybody knows what we're doing. So, you know, that's not anybody's fault but our own. So what are the auditors, not just Metrics Group, but what are the auditors in general hired to do when they're conducting a financial statement audit? Really, at the end of the day, we are bound by Canadian auditing standards, and those require us to plan and perform the audit to provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are not materially misstated, and issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. So that was quite a mouthful, but what does that mean? What does reasonable assurance mean? It means that we would be approaching absolute assurance, but no auditor would ever tell you that, you know, there's not a chance that something could have slipped through the cracks. You know, maybe kind of like the hockey game last night. You know, it was a little bit unusual. Anyways, so again, approaching absolute assurance. You know, sometimes depending on the audit evidence that we're looking at, things can be subjective. Thankfully, in a municipality, there's not too many complicated estimates and those types of things where, you know, we have to be concerned about management trying to, you know, manipulate the financial statements and those types of things that you might run into with a public company that's trying to, you know, increase the share price. So anyways, at the end of the day, the auditor's report is reproduced in your financial statements, and I won't read the whole thing to you, but at the top of that auditor's report, it indicates that the financial statements are in accordance with PSAS, which is Public Sector Accounting Standards. So those are the standards or the accounting framework that local governments and other levels of government, school divisions, those types of organizations use in doing their financial reporting. So if you look at, hopefully, if you look at, you know, other municipalities in the area, the auditor's report is going to look very similar. But anyways, we call this a clean report, and it's not something that we make up. It's actually in the auditing standards. And so that's all I'll say about that. Unless somebody has more questions, I'm happy to talk about audit theory in more detail. We did provide you with a audit plan earlier in the year that, discussed some of those things. And again, like I said, I think that summarizes what we were doing pretty briefly, but always happy to go deeper. So if we want to look at the financial statements, I just summarized the financial statements. I find like there's a lot of numbers on the financial statements, and then some of them are getting pretty long, so we've trimmed those down here and tidied things up a bit so we can look at things a little bit more succinctly, I hope. But looking at the statement of financial position first and net debt, so financial assets and all the liabilities the town has, I'll just say a few words about things, and by all means, if you have questions, you can either wait till the end or interrupt me, or not interrupt me, but you can ask me a question at any time you like. So looking at the statement of financial position, starting at the top, you can see cash has gone up quite a bit. There's a few reasons for that. You can see further down the page, fourth line from the top there, that investments have decreased, so some of that cash moved around. There's also some more deferred revenue this year down below under liabilities. The biggest change there was the money that the town got from the curling club. So all those types of things, ended up in increasing the cash balances. So that's all I'll say about that. Receivables are always going to be a pretty important item to the auditors. I want to make sure that, the things that the town is reporting that they're going to receive actually are getting received. So thankfully with a municipality, there's not too much risk. It's not like a bank. We used to audit a number of credit unions, and you had to look through the loans and make sure people were paying, and if there wasn't paying, there's security. So here we have, taxes. You can take my house if I don't pay, so that's some good recourse. But other than that, standard types of things in the receivables, the town does not have an allowance for doubtful accounts, and we agreed that there was not a need to have one at the end of the year. But the 11 million includes things like, among other things, taxes, utilities, but the bigger items are some of the grant funds for 2025, LGFF and the CCBF funds. Those totaled $3.7 million. There's some developer levies in there for $1 million. But again, like I said, either the money's coming or, those are being paid as we go. So we didn't have any concerns there. Investments, as I mentioned, it's decreased quite a bit there, but basically our procedures in that area just involve confirming those with the financial institution. So the town has some bonds of about 4.5 million and some principal protected notes, about 2.3 million. And then finally at the bottom, I guess there is a loan, I forgot. The town did lend money to the Meridian Foundation, but that's being paid as required by the agreement, so no issues there either. So total financial assets, $49 million at the end of the year. So financial assets are things that are cash or will be cash in the not too distant future. Town's liabilities totaled $79.7 million at the end of the year. Standard types of things, payables, you can see there's quite an increase there. It really has to do with the capital activity that's going on. Your rec center and all that good stuff. There's some holdbacks that ended up in the payables at the end of the year, among other things for that. But other than that, standard types of things for municipality as far as payables go. And really what we're concerned there is with most of our clients where we find, mistakes from time to time is somebody missed a bill. There should have been an accrual made for a capital invoice or something and it got missed, those types of things. Now that didn't happen here, but that's where we typically find some larger mistakes when we do find mistakes. Other than that, like I mentioned, deferred revenue is a pretty big liability, 12.4 million. So that's funds that the town has received or are receivable and haven't been spent on what they were received for. So things like grants, you have maybe the LGFF money, you've got that included in there, but you haven't allocated for projects yet, or you have and the project hasn't happened yet, then it sits in this deferred revenue account and becomes revenue when the money gets spent. So that's what that relates to, again, standard. Asset retirement obligations, for those of you that might be new, that was a new auditing or accounting standard a few years ago where when an organization has potentially some requirements, legal a legal obligation to remediate or clean up, in this case, buildings that have asbestos in them. That's what we see with most of our clients is landfills or asbestos problems. This is an estimate of what that might cost to clean those up, primarily for buildings, that were constructed pre-1990-ish. So it doesn't take long to spend a lot of money cleaning those types of things up. I know firsthand because we bought a building and a bunch of a few holes in the bricks here and there, and all of a sudden, boom, 300 grand. It's like, well, we'll clean this up ourselves. No, you won't clean this up. Anyways, you're accountants, you cannot do that. Anyhow, so that's what that's about, and you're not alone. Pretty much all municipalities that we deal with have something similar to that on their books, as well as we audit a number of school divisions. They have some big numbers for those because a lot of the schools in the province are pretty old. Long-term debt, town has some $49 million of long-term debt, so most of that is with the province, and there's a few term loans with a financial institution, so I'm probably not telling you anything you don't know, but the rates are disclosed in the notes, 2.3 to 4.95, so some pretty good rates. Those are fixed, so you're not exposed to any significant interest rate risk there. And then those would mature right now in 2045. So this year, there was new debt, $22.3 million of new debt. The biggest portion of that was for the rec center. I think that was the first draw was $15 million. And other than that, Meridian Reservoir and the Public Works building and one other item which I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyways, procedures in that area, we confirm those balances with the province or the banks. So when you look at the end of the day here, when the smoke clears, the town has a net debt position of $31 million. So that, if you can see that increase quite a bit from last year, and that's not necessarily anything to be concerned about. The net debt increases when the town takes its cash and builds capital assets. So you had a big year this year, so we're just basically changing assets around, right? And we'll see that on the next page, or not this page, the next page, but the town is also required to disclose its debt limits in accordance with the Municipal Government Act. So those are disclosed in the financial statements. You can see just at the top of the page there, town's debt limit was $89 million. Total debt was $49 million, so you have remaining debt limit of $40 million. As a percentage, that's gone up about 20%, but still, I don't think that's pushing anything too serious as far as that goes. And then at the bottom, service on that debt, interest and principal payments, $4.2 million. That's, roughly 7% of the town's operating budget, which isn't necessarily too high either. So just letting you know that there's no concerns there. So rounding out the statement of financial position, now we look at non-financial assets. So roads, sewer, water, buildings, all that good stuff. You can see there, first line at the top, $298 million of tangible capital assets. So those are, well, we'll take a look here. You can see here, sorry, that's a little bit small, but on the first column, this year the town had a pretty big year for capital activity, 37.8 million. So you can see the bigger ones, obviously the rec center and a few other things, and then some of the grant funding, which we'll talk about in a minute, how those funds were used, but the bigger grant funds were for the 43rd Street, CCBF money, and cemetery money, or LGFF funded that, so. That's just a summary. So, as far as assets go, sometimes we get into some discussions about what an asset is. So that's what we do for excitement when we're bored and auditing. But thankfully, we just don't want things going into asset accounts that are not assets. That's the bottom line. So sometimes there's debate on that, but this year, there was nothing that we were concerned about. So rounding out the statement of financial position then, when you add the non-financial assets to the financial assets, what we end up with is at the bottom of this slide is the accumulated surplus, town's accounting net worth, $268 million. And it breaks down into a few categories here, just a couple takeaways. The biggest portion of the town's equity, is tied up in buildings, roads, sewer, equity in TCA. Second line from the bottom, $251 million. So that's those assets accounting value less the debt, just like our house. You know, we have a mortgage and house is worth X, mortgage is worth Y, and the difference is our equity. Same thing here. And then the town also has some restricted surplus in the way of operating capital reserves. So those are generally, you know, either going to be via budget or council motion and those types of things. So that's all I'll say about that. So just moving on to the statement of operations. I won't go through necessarily every line here either again, but I'll just give you some highlights. So at the top of the, at the bottom of the page, you can see that middle column, total revenue, the actual was $58 million. Budget was about, $4 million less than that, or $3.5 million less than that. The big two are the taxes and sales and user charges. So thankfully, these are fairly easy items to audit. But just a couple of comments on why there's a few variations to budget. So if you look at the sales and user charges, just to remind everybody that the town's published audited financial statements include its share of the Tri-Leisure Center operations. So that was about $1.8 million of that difference. And then also the town's results also consolidate the library, Stony Plain Public Library. So that was about another $200,000. So there's about $2 million there uptick. That's why there's primarily a reason for that variance. Other than that, you can see nothing too significant. Just as a way of information, rentals, that's primarily the RCMP and the Heritage building, some rent on those. Investment income, town's budget was a little conservative there, so there was approximately $600,000 uptick there. And then all other revenues at the bottom, 1.2 million. But overall, if you want to, summarize that difference between the budget and the actual, it's $2 million for the Tri-Leisure and the library, and about $600,000 for interest. So that pretty much covers those differences. And then just moving on to operating expenses. Same kind of thing here. I'll just make a few comments, but again, at the top, the first line, a little bit over budget there, primarily again due to the Tri-Leisure results. Other than that, general government, you can see that was under budget, so the ERP budget was actually quite a bit higher than what ended up occurring. And protective services, that was under budget. The budget was pretty conservative there as well, about $500,000 on the RCMP costs. So if you look at the bottom, more or less, the town actually came in under budget. So if you equalize that, and I'm trying not to get too much into the details here, but if you equalize that for the Tri-Leisure amount, and then you've got a couple of key things that I just mentioned, RCMP budget to actual was a little bit less than planned. There was amortization on certain assets was about $2 million less than budget, primarily because some of the assets didn't get completed and thus were not amortized. And also some interest. There was some savings on the interest to budget because some of the debentures that I was talking about earlier came in later in the year than was anticipated. So that is kind of a summary of what happened there. So when we take a look at the overall results then, and I'm just about done, top of the page, revenues less expenses. The town reported an annual operating deficit of 1.5 million versus the budget was 7.2 million. So I won't go over those differences again. We've talked about those. And then the town also has some other sources of revenue. A couple highlights there. You can see government transfers for capital. Those are fancy word for grants. So like I was mentioning earlier, LGFF, CCBF, those types of programs, the $5,694,000, that's what that relates to. One of the other things that's a little bit, not unusual necessarily, but there's $1 million of contributed capital assets. So every now and then, a developer turns over some infrastructure to the town, and the town records those assets at their market value at the date that occurs. So that's what that's related to. And then finally, I just want to comment on the gain on the disposal of the capital assets. A good portion of that was on the sale of the Forest Green Plaza. So if you're wondering what that was about, the annual surplus then at the middle of the page on the bottom there was $6,691,000. And the part at the bottom doesn't show up in your financial statements. I just put that in there because, you know, if you look at the operating deficit, you might wonder, well, did we bring in enough funds to pay the bills? So if you add back amortization, which is obviously non-cash, you can see at the bottom there, $7 million surplus after you make that adjustment. So that's an extra. It's not in the statements. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview of the financials. Just a couple other comments on the, should have an audit findings report, but I'll just make a few overall comments about that. So the auditors are required to report back to council on certain items in accordance with the auditing standards. Just going through those, we did not find any significant control deficiencies. So what would that mean? If there's controls that are not operating on an effective manner to prevent, detect, correct misstatements in a timely fashion, that would be what we're talking about there, but thankfully there was nothing to that effect. And if there's any unusual accounting policies or estimates, you know, we should bring that up, but again, nothing here that is any way unusual compared to any of other municipal clients. So just a couple of places where some estimates have been made, and you can see those. Adjusted and unadjusted differences, there were a few adjustments made during the audit, and after those got adjusted, there were no material unadjusted differences. And finally, like I said at the beginning, we didn't have any difficulties, significant or otherwise. The word significant comes from the auditing standards, because we're not supposed to complain about anything. We're not supposed to complain about everything, I guess, just significant things, but anyways, there was nothing. There was no significant or insignificant, so really appreciate the assistance again. And you know, you might hear me say that every year and think, well, is there ever any problems anywhere? Oh yeah, there's plenty of problems out there, so be thankful that that's not here. So anyways, whoops, what happened here? I turned off my... That concludes what I have to say, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Dirks. Always a thorough presentation from you, and so I will look to council for any questions or comments to the auditor for the public session, and then I believe we will take an opportunity to go into closed session as per normal for our council with the auditor after that point in time. Any questions or comments? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Dirks, for being here with us. I think the first time we met, I shared that this was all new to me, and I feel like my fifth go-around starting to make some sense of it, and appreciate that you deliver it in a way that we can digest, and so thank you for that. I do have two questions. I don't know, through you, Deputy Mayor, if it's to Mr. Dirks or our staff, but I'll start on page 15. This is the operating revenue table. Looking at the second last line there of fines, we were at 415 actual 2024, 405 budgeted for this year, but we're only 241. Just looking for an indication as to about $160,000 reduction there.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Anderson. I believe, and Terry can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it had something to do with photo radar going by memory. Does that ring a bell?
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to all of council, that was a portion of it.
Okay, a portion, so I do appreciate that. One of the things we, or one of the approaches, I guess, is we've taken has been an education, not an enforcement approach. So I'm just looking through you, Deputy Mayor, to admin, I guess. What would the remaining portion of that be attributed to in terms of the reduction we see here?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor, to all of council. So I'm just pulling back up my notes from the March presentation. I would say the biggest portion of it was enforcement, which was, from my notes from March, was over $134,000.
Okay, thank you. I do appreciate that number there, so thank you for that. The second one that stood out for me, this is page 17, looking at our annual surplus. We had budgeted 3.7 million for developer contributions for tangible capital assets. Came in, the actual is $327,000 for about a little bit better than $3.25 million difference there. And so just looking for an explanation, if I could please, as to the discrepancy noted. Sorry, I shouldn't say discrepancy, but the noted difference.
Yes, I would have to defer to Terry on that one.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor, to all of council. Through discussions with our engineering department, it was just based on timing of contributions coming back to the town, and still anticipating into the future years, however, did not occur in that year.
Okay, and so just a quick follow-up, if I may, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So those are developer contributions, and that would be realized in a future year, whether it's this year or next year, when those assets are turned over to the municipality.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, that would be correct.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Councillor Pletchko.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through to Mr. Dirks. Always a pleasure when you come and give us a presentation. It's very thorough and always exciting. There was only one thing that you made reference to, and I just want you to elaborate a little tiny bit on it, was our operating debt of 7%. You made mention that that was comparable to other communities, but your facial expression might have said something a little different. So I'm just wondering what would be the highs and the lows that would be comparable, I guess.
Oh, okay, thank you, Councillor Pacheco. Facial expression was probably not indicative of anything in particular. Yeah, I think I mentioned that the service on the debt, the 4.2 million, was roughly 7% of, I was probably actually having a hard time reading my notes, to be honest with you. So anyways, that was all I was saying, was it was about 7% of the town's operating revenue or budget. And, you know, from what I read, researched, anywhere from, where was I now? Just a minute, I've got the numbers here, if you can bear with me. Where are we? Yeah, 10 to 15% would be healthy, so you're well below that. So anyways, I apologize for my facial expression if it led you to believe something else.
It didn't lead me to believe that we were in a bad situation. I just was curious as to what that number actually was that would be
Yeah,
a
7%.
healthy number. So
Yeah.
thank you for the answer.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I do have one myself. First, I didn't see it in your presentation here. I'm just wondering if you can speak to what level materiality was set out for the town.
Materiality quantitative materiality, so that would be roughly 2% of the operating revenue, so 58 million, you know, it'd be around whatever that is, $1 million roughly. Now, having said that, we don't only audit things that are $1 million. Definitely well below that, but if we got to the point where, you know, a client says, we're recording something in a way that we don't agree with, and it's maybe 700,000, or, you know, we would push for that to get corrected, but if push came to shove, we may be able to still sign the financial statements.
Excellent, thank you very much. And then I just have a further question. Council received a memorandum from our manager of financial services in regards to the audited financial statements and an immaterial unadjusted difference that was noted. I'm just wondering if you can speak a little bit about that to council and what that, how that impacts anything or any non-impact that it does have.
Yeah, I can do that. So as the memo indicated, there was some items this year during the conversion to the new system. I'm trying not to go down a rabbit hole here with accounting, but anyways, some of the items that were capital in nature were being posted to a place in the accounting records where they shouldn't have been. And so that required some investigating, and we were able to narrow that down to, you know, a manageable number. Now, so the reason that appears as an unadjusted difference is we are very confident that there should be more revenue recorded. For example, The sale of the Forest Green building was one of the things that came up in our investigation of this that was a problem contributing to this difference. So that number has already come down quite a bit. Anyways, at the end of the day, we had to make an entry to bump up revenue and balance the accumulated surplus. Now, we're very confident that that's the right move, but we don't know exactly what that revenue was. So hopefully that explains that to you.
Thank you. And just for clarity then, the likelihood on that was not a singular transaction. There's a likelihood that it was an incremental amount over a multitude of transactions in the way that they were inputted into the system and then converted into the new system under the ERP. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that it's very likely it's not just one item, because if it was, it would probably have been in some accountant's head somewhere. Like, it would have been, I recognize that number. So anyways, yeah, I would think that, it's not unusual that this type of problem, not exactly like this, occurs quite a bit when our clients make entries incorrectly. So we know what happens. It just was, at this point, it was like, not worth pursuing that anymore, cost versus benefit. Now, I think administration may still pursue that, and it may come out in the future, but I'm pretty confident that how it's recorded is correct. It's just we're not sure exactly what it is.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And then my final question on that is, so obviously it didn't hit materiality. Just wondering, is there any risks or any challenges that may present themselves because of that in the future?
No, I believe that's being, rectified now, how that was going in the first place. So just so you know, maybe I can try to explain it, but if the town brings in revenues and expenses, those items should never be recorded directly to equity, like reserves. And that's usually how these things kind of happen. And the system was doing that on its own. So anyways, that's, I think it's been resolved it's, overall has been resolved. Now that number still hasn't been identified, but overall the problem has been fixed.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll just look across the council one more time for any questions or comments before I look for a motion to go into closed session. Excellent. Seeing none, then as per standard with us, we normally go into closed session with the auditor in order to have a conversation about how the audit went and anything that may not be able to be brought forward in a public session. With that, at the conclusion of the closed session, council will go into a recess here before reconvening in public to continue with the rest of our agenda. So I will look for a motion from Councillor Niebergall to go in camera with the auditor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move that we move into a closed session.
Perfect. I'll call the question. All in favor? Excellent. Thank you very much. We'll just give a minute for the chambers to clear and we'll go into closed session with the auditor. Excellent. Welcome back. We'll call the meeting back to order here at 6:14. Council met in closed session with the auditor until 6:03 p.m. and we had a motion from Councillor Anderson to come out of closed session. So we'll get that recorded. And with that, we will move on to number 6 of our agenda, which is adoption of the regular council meeting minutes for April 13th, 2026. Councillor Loynes for the motion, please.
Town Council approved the April 13th, 2026 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Excellent, thank you very much. Members of council, any errors, omissions, or questions to administration on the minutes? Seeing none, called to question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on in our agenda, we have all of our council board and committee minutes. So we have 7.1, the Planning Advisory Committee, 7.2, Growth and Commerce, 7.3, Policing, and 7.4, the Town of Stony Plain Library Board. I will look for any questions or comments to any of the members on those committees from council. Councillor Niebergall?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to the library representative. I was just wondering, I have two, if I might actually. First one is a question just around, I'm just looking for the page, sorry. It's about the working group. Advocacy working group. So number 4 on page 68 of our package. Just wondering if you can at all speak to what the working group is working towards.
It's around the new bill. It will be advocacy around the new bill, Bill 28.
Thank you. And then second, if I might, this is just a comment actually, just in regards on page 69, under the amendments, there was changing ESL to English as a second language. And just like a little bit of feedback that the move to EAL, English as an additional language, because it makes an assumption that English would be the second language that you would be learning, which is in today's day now quite uncommon, that it's just only your second language. So just maybe something for feedback to take to the group, that language is shifting to EAL.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments in regards to the committee minutes? Seeing none, I will go to Councillor Palechko for the motion, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The Town Council received the council board and committee minutes for information.
Thank you. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. Next on our agenda, we have bylaws, and we have bylaw 2737/G/26, a speed limit reduction in collector and local roads in residential areas. Administration, when you're ready, please go ahead with the presentation for council.
Good evening, council, through Deputy Mayor and all of council. Just ahead of the manager's presentation tonight, I did just want to slow things down a bit and just talk a little bit more further about this item. So this has been a very important item that we've been working towards in administration for the last year or so. There's been a great deal of effort by many parts of the town to bring this here tonight. I did want to highlight that this is not a one-and-done item. It will be discussing with council through the bylaw and the implications therein. But there's a series of steps that, to make this successful, will be happening right after. This includes the education component in working with our enforcement teams and the community on the changes. This isn't just simply a bylaw change to a signage change into that leads to success with this item. There's success that happens through the project and the implementation, and as well as us working with all parts of the community to make sure that we're all working to make our roads safer. So with that in mind, we're looking forward to this conversation with council and subsequently with the community. I'll now turn it over to our manager of engineering for his presentation.
Thanks, Brett. Good evening, council. The purpose of today's presentation is twofold. First, to seek council decision on the bylaw amendment related to the speed reduction initiative, and secondly, to outline the proposed implementation approach and key next steps. The agenda includes a brief overview and rationale for the proposed speed limit reduction, along with key findings and recommended changes. Some of this information was previously shared with Council last year and is included here as a refresher. As part of the presentation, we'll also talk about proposed amendments to traffic bylaw and outline the implementation approach and timelines. Across Canada, including Edmonton region, many municipalities already adopted reduced residential speed limits to improve safety, support active transportation, and enhance overall community livability. As Council may recall, a consultant-led speed reduction study was presented in July 2025. At the time, Council received that report for information and supported the proposed direction. The study included a review of other municipalities and field assessments, including road design aspects, surrounding land use, and user activity to develop its recommendation. The study also noted that any speed limit changes would require amendments to the town's traffic bylaw for implementation. Based on these findings and council direction, administration is now proposing a bylaw amendment to limit speed from 50 km per hour to 40 km on local roads and most residential collectors, with implementation planned by the end of July this year. This slide shows some of the key factors in regards to why this matters and how we make our neighborhoods safer. Lower vehicle speed reduce both the likelihood and severity of collisions. Even small reductions can make a meaningful difference in preventing serious injuries. This improves safety for pedestrians, cyclists, and children by increasing reaction time and reducing stopping distances. Lower speeds also address ongoing concerns from residents about speeding. This approach reflects proven practices, as many municipalities across Alberta and Canada have adopted 40 km speed reduction limits to improve safety outcomes. Key findings. The study shows that most residential streets in Stony Plain already operate close to 40 km per hour, which means the proposed change aligns with current drivers' behavior. It also recognizes that higher speeds remain appropriate in certain industrial and commercial areas. Street design also plays an important role in influencing driver behavior. Features such as parked vehicles, sidewalk, and frequent driveways naturally encourage slower speeds. However, some collector roads may encourage speed and require additional traffic calming measures over time to support lower speeds. Due to higher pedestrian activity in the downtown area, a lower speed limit of 40 km is also recommended. Based on these findings, the recommended approach is to reduce speed limits to 40 km on local residential roads and most residential collector roads, while maintaining 50 km on roads where higher speeds are appropriate. This creates a more consistent and intuitive system for drivers, improving compliance and overall safety, and aligns with practices used in other municipalities. Building on the key findings, this map illustrates how the recommendations are applied across collectors' roads network. Those shown in green are recommended for a reduced speed limit of 40 km per hour as they operate within residential contexts and have greater interaction with pedestrians and local traffic. In contrast, the roads shown in blue on the right-hand map will remain at 50 km per hour as they serve higher traffic movement and are designed to accommodate those speeds. No changes are proposed for the industrial areas north of Highway 16A, where the existing 50 km speed limit remains appropriate based on road design, traffic patterns, and overall functions. Now, this slides outline the specific bylaw changes being proposed for Council's consideration. Currently, Clause 3.15.4 of the traffic bylaw only specifies a 20 km/h speed limit for alleys. The proposed amendment introduces a clear framework by establishing default speed limits across different contexts. 40 km/h on highways, which includes local and most collector roads, 20 km/h in alleys, and 15 km/h in parking lots, unless otherwise posted through approved traffic control devices. This amendment provides the regulatory basis required to enforce the proposed speed limit changes across the town. The implementation approach will include updating signage inventory, followed by replacement and installation on the day of implementation. In regard to communication and enforcement, administration is proposing a phased and coordinated approach. A communication campaign will start in advance to clearly inform and educate residents on the changes, including locations and implementation timelines. After the implementation, enforcement will begin with an education-focused period to promote awareness, followed by full enforcement. Ongoing monitoring will be used to evaluate effectiveness and identify any adjustments if needed. This slide outlines the implementation timelines, subject to Council's approval of the bylaw. The rollout will follow a phased approach to support a smooth transition. Administration will begin a communication and awareness campaign in late May, which will run for a couple of months to inform and prepare residents. The enforcement plan is expected to be finalized by the end of June. Signage changes will be implemented on the effective date, planned for the last week of July. Soon after, enforcement will begin with the first month as a grace period, focused on education and awareness before full enforcement is in place. Following implementation, ongoing monitoring will be conducted to evaluate effectiveness. Well, thank you very much, Council. Administration would be happy to take questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And with that, I will open it up to questions and comments from council. Again, this is questions and comments for clarity. We will wait until we accept the motion for first reading before we move into any matter of debate. So questions or comments for clarity? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. This has been a topic that's come up a number of times over the last few years, so it's great to see a decision item in front of us this evening. I'm looking at page 85 or 86. I have it split screen, so I can't tell exactly which one it is, but it's the proposed speed limit by area map. And I'm looking specifically on the east side of this map that's been drawn for us. And there's a section there along 44th that comes past Sun Meadows and Jutland and Silverstone and so on, that's been indicated to remain at the 50 km/h speed limit. Just looking for some comments, if I may, Mr. Deputy Mayor, from administration on the inclusion of that section as a 50 km/h speed limit.
Thank you. I looked at that as well. My deduction was it was where there was residential facing onto the road versus where to access residential you had to turn off, but I'll bring that to administration to clarify.
Through Deputy Mayor to Council, I understand all of Council. That's correct. The 44th Ave doesn't function the same way along its entire length, as you noted, and it was noted in the presentation. There are several considerations on the west side, including front-facing homes, school zones, and some other considerations as well that was outlined in the presentation that necessitates a 40 km/h change. The east side does have a connector a function to some main roads, including some main highways and arterials. So it is recommended in this report to be at 50 for those locations, just due to those different functional considerations.
Okay, thank you. And if I may, just a quick follow-up. Certainly 44th extended. We see a small section on the west side as well. On the previous page here, I think 85, there's an indication maintaining 50 kilometers an hour in select commercial areas, which would be that 44th Avenue on the west side of town. Just looking for some clarity through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor from Administration, this sort of leaves us with a section of 44th Avenue at 50 kilometers an hour that then reduces to 40 kilometers an hour and then increases again to 50 kilometers an hour, the only section in town that would have successive changes along the access there. And so just looking for some comments from administration, how that consideration went into the proposal that's before us this evening.
Thank you. We'll absolutely have administration answer that. I think it's worth noting as well, there's actually a reduction in there of 30 kilometers an hour for a school and playground zone in addition. So there are 3 separate speed limits along that road.
Through Deputy Mayor to Councilor Anderson, all the council, just for clarity, the question's asking about again 44th Ave and the different sections of the west side being 50 kilometer an hour, then the 40 kilometer an hour middle section and the east side being 50. Is that correct? Just a general comment on that?
Yeah, and then 30 and then 40 and then back to 50. So we're looking at several successive speed changes along this one road. And certainly, I think driver understanding of expectation goes a long way into compliance with traffic law. And here along this one section, the 44th Avenue, I shouldn't say one section, but east to west or west to east goes through several speed limit changes. And so the question's just around how that reality, I guess, played into the recommendation before us to leave these at 50, again, 50, 40, 30, 40, 50, as opposed to 40, 30, 40, right? There's certainly more speed limit changes as it's presented to us this evening.
Thank you for the clarity. Through Deputy Mayor to Councilor Anderson, all the council. So there's a couple of things at play there. So in the bylaw amendment, it does say unless otherwise posted by approved traffic control device, the speed limits will be here under listed at 40 and some other qualifiers as well. So in those cases where we have the school zones outlined, the previous iteration did outline the school zones specifically. In this case, what we're proposing is this bylaw amendment directs that attention to the traffic control devices listed at parks and playground zones. So that will be the governing determinant at those locations. Functionally, for those sections, there are natural breaks, be it at like major traffic control devices such as lights or major intersections. Before you cross into a section, you aren't driving through, with the exception of the school zones, necessarily through where the speed limit will change from a 50 to a 40. There are some natural breaks that you would have to go through and change into, again, a different functional class of the road. So as drivers experience the road and are using these transportation facilities, there's some call it awareness of the drivers to be aware of those sections that they're on, so that they're driving at the appropriate speeds. But ultimately the recommendations that came from the report outlined that the ones that were recommended to leave at 50 already have those tendencies, and it's recommended to keep them at 50.
And just one quick follow-up, if I may, Mr. Deputy Mayor, not even just specific to this section, but just some thoughts from administration on any public or resident engagement that contributed to the proposal that's before us.
Through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Anderson, thanks for your question. So yeah, I mean, as of now, the engagement will going to happen like soon after the approval of the bylaw. So it didn't happen anything so far, but as soon as the bylaw is kind of amended, so that is how the communication will going to go out.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Looking for any other questions, clarity? Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just for clarity, Administration, you mentioned this would be coming back for other roads with speed limit changes at the beginning of your presentation, or you said there was other additions that might be coming or amendments to this. Did I mishear that?
Through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Loynes, thanks for your question. So, yeah, that will gonna be what I was supposed to be saying there, though, that we're gonna be coming back to. Sorry, can you please say
At the
repeat your
beginning
question?
of your presentation, you mentioned that these changes, or maintaining a 50, was one of the proposed changes for this portion of the land use bylaw. So was that indicating that speed limit reduction in other areas was coming forward at a later date, and we were only going to go through potentially 3 readings of just this, but expecting changes at a later date after the engagement that you said would happen after?
So thanks for clarity. So yeah, no, these are the changes which we're proposing, and there is no other intention to kind of bring anything further on.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions for clarity or understanding at this point in time? Seeing none, I will save mine until after first reading is on the table as well. And seeing none, Councillor Meyer for first reading on the bylaw, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and it makes me very happy to make the motion that Town Council give first reading to bylaw 2737/G/26, a bylaw to amend traffic bylaw 2677/G/23.
Thank you very much for making that motion. And so now we will open up to any questions, comments, or debate on the matter itself. So I'll look to council for any of them. Councillor Meyer?
Well, thank you for giving me a chance to speak on this. It's certainly a policy I've been pushing for a couple of elections now, but I'd like to just maybe tell a bit of a story. So when I first got elected, a councillor over in Spruce Grove, who's now our MLA, gave me a shout to congratulate me. And during that conversation, I had an opportunity to ask him what he thought one of his most important initiatives he had accomplished while he was on council. And he actually had mentioned that advancing the border paving athletic center 1 year forward was the thing he was most proud of. And I remember thinking at the time, boy, that's a pretty modest accomplishment, just moving something ahead just 1 year. 8 years into my councillor job, now I've come to appreciate actually that was a fairly significant accomplishment, and there's many levers that need to get pulled and moved to get that done. So I kind of liken this a bit to that. It seems maybe like an insignificant change to go from 50 to 40, but we've seen several reports now discussing the advantages. Personally, I think a lot of what it will do will give residents a feeling of being on safer streets. Maybe net effect might be quieter streets. As we've heard this evening, most of the people who are driving on the side streets are already doing this speed. What it's going to do is be extra clear to the individual who thinks the speed limit's 50, so I'll do 50. And I think that we hear a lot of residents complain about that person. So I do think that it will be a net benefit. I think our residents will appreciate it. There's also, I mean, we haven't seen it necessarily brought up specifically, but we see more electric vehicles out there, more alternative modes of transportation. We see them on the roads, reducing the speed limits. The likelihood of an accident occurring goes down, as well as if it does occur, it's going to be less severe. So I think those are certainly things that we should be considering, especially with the advancement of technology. And then also I think maybe something else that wasn't necessarily pointed out, but we do have a cohort of older drivers. Giving them more time to react means that they have their independence longer. So I think that's also a net benefit that I think our residents will appreciate. And we also heard we're being fairly judicious. It's not every street, and the ones that do function well at 50, we are remaining at 50. So anyhow, those are some of my comments. I'd like to thank administration for the support of the requisite studies that were required, and hopefully I have my fellow councillors' support this evening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Meyer. Looking for other questions, comments, debate from council. Councillor Niebergall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to comment that along the campaign trail, I did hear from a number of residents along Fairway that although the little buffer zone of the park there leading up to, especially turning off of Veterans, you kind of get that nice little curve in there, that it is enticing to hit that 50 as quickly as you can. And then once you pass the park, which typically did have a heavy presence of photo radar in that area, once you're past the park, then from there to golf course is also a nice little strip. So I appreciate this proposed change. Additionally, along the Oatway Umbuck there, as an administrator in that area, we have a lot of kids that walk to and from, and so to be able to say that that road becomes safer for kids to be coming to and from school, I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, debate? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Looking at the map on page 86 and seeing the proposed changes for 40 kilometers, I'm curious then what the rationale is for all the other residential areas that are not highlighted in green. Is the expectation for them to stay at 50? The only one I know for a fact that is not is High Park, where it is 30 throughout that whole subdivision. So my question for making this an okay thing is to understand what the plan is for everywhere else that is not currently highlighted.
Through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Lyons. Thanks for your question. So yeah, I mean, as of now, it is being proposed, as I said, like all the residential areas were going to be 40 kilometers per hour. And the map is only showing basically the collector roads, which is greens are going to be changed from 50 to 40, and where the blue will going to be remain as 50. And in regards to that High Park one, like 30, this is going to be, because it's already posted there, so it's going to remain as 30 kilometers per hour.
Okay, thank you. Looking for any other questions, comments, debate? Councillor Palechko.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Question this evening is it focuses around the 50 zone, and it comes from, we haven't talked about the commercial side of things over in the industrial park. But I can think of the phone calls that I take on a regular basis, that the speed is too high. And yet we leave the commercial side still at 50 as we enter within our communities. There is a lot of walking traffic that has come to our community around these commercial areas. So I'm just wondering where the logic is in leaving it at a 50 zone when it could be really part of the rest of it as a 40 zone, and it just makes it simple for our people that are coming into our community to understand that we're a 40 kilometer an hour community.
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Palechko. Thanks for the question. So with respect to the industrial areas, a couple of specific contexts there is the larger trucks and the parcels of land that are currently occupying there. We didn't feel at this stage it was necessary to change those down to 40. As the manager noted in the presentation, though, we do part of part of what happens after this implementation is continued monitoring. So this isn't a one and done where we don't have the option to come back to council looking into, like, as we monitor that location, see if we need to make additional changes to that zone. At this time, we feel that the 50 kilometers an hour in the North Industrial is appropriate for the functions that's being used out there. But in the future, that if we start to see that wane or change, or as the area grows, we may consider bringing to council some any changes. But right now, we're not recommending that.
Yep, continue. Just gonna, okay, perfect. Any other questions, comments, or debate? So seeing no other questions, comments, or debate at this time, I will look to add mine. The first would be a comment and a question. You know, a general reduction in speed limit will increase safety. I think that's a well-known fact. It doesn't matter whether it's a reduction to 40, a reduction to 30, a reduction to 20, a reduction to 10. You reduce the speed limit, you increase stopping distance and all of those type of factors, you reduce the amount of injury and the potential of a collision and so on and so forth. So I reviewed all of the GIS data available for all of the speed statistics and so on and so forth in town, and I struggled to understand the problem that we were facing that necessitated the change. And so I guess one of the things that I would strongly consider on this from a safety perspective would be any collision statistics. And I don't see any collision statistics that are noted in the plans that were presented. And I'm wondering, what do we have for collision statistics, not only in number of collisions, location of collisions, but also severity of collisions?
Through Deputy Mayor to all of Council, thank you for the question. So a couple of things there. You're correct. We do have, through our speed monitoring program, we are able to understand and even publish some information on what we're seeing for actual speeds in the area. So that's one of the successes of looking at the 40 kilometer an hour change, is that we're seeing trends with habits in different areas that this would be probably adhering to what people are already doing. And you are also correct that any reduction in the total allowable speed, operating speed of the area will be better for to mitigate any incidents that do occur, whether they're with pedestrians or other vehicles or any combination thereof. With respect to the traffic incident statistics, I don't believe we have anything firm on that in this report. I'll look to my colleague to my right here if he's got anything that he could provide. Ultimately, these recommendations focus on reducing the impacts that you noted, and should an incident occur, and also making the areas safer for all those who use it in the operation. I'll ask my colleague from Community Practice Services if he has anything to add to that.
Through to yourself, Deputy Mayor, and the rest of the council. Certainly we do, through Alberta Transportation, have the ability to download data from their data set related to collisions in our community. That information comes from the RCMP. We use it majority of the time for the justification for automated traffic. We have to provide those collision statistics. Reporting is done in 3 different ways. It's done on a fatal collision, injury collision, and property damage. I can't give you specific statistics right now as we're sitting in the council chambers, but certainly the majority of our collisions are property damage, so it's not a lot at intersections. There's a lot in in private parking lots, like Safeway as an example would be a private parking lot on people's properties. So it's not just specifically to the roadways around Stony Plain. We certainly do get the information related to, if it's reported through the RCMP channels and onto Alberta Transportation. And certainly if our CPOs are involved, and they add that data too. Collision Reporting Center would also inform that data set. Definitely, we do have information on what happens annually, quarterly, related to collisions specific to our community. The majority are property damage. We have had a couple fatals that we're aware of. We did have the one pedestrian collision on Veterans Boulevard a couple years ago that would have been captured in this collision data. The general manager of planning infrastructure is correct. We also do have our speed signs that do inform some, not specifically to data, but we do overlay some of that information to ensure that if we get a speed issue in a particular area, we'd look at the data related to collisions to see if there's something else we could do or should do from a traffic calming perspective.
Thank you very much for that. And understanding that at this time we don't have an overlay map of collision data in the proposed amendment areas, the proposed changed areas, would that be information that would be able to be compiled? Is there a way that, for instance, the map that appears on page 76, could we have any type of an overlay map which indicates collision statistics on those roads with a proposed speed limit change for a period of, say, the past 3 years or 5 years, same as we have our GIS data for the speed capturing? Just something to indicate, like, what I'm looking for and where I'm challenged on this is when we have a solution brought forward, it's typically to resolve a problem. Reviewing the GIS data would tend to indicate that there really isn't a speed problem. And we've dedicated staff time to it already. In order to roll this out, would require a significant amount more staff time. It would also outlay the capital, I think it was noted, of $50,000. We have other traffic safety improvement programs such as our crosswalks, our LED flashers, the bollards, bulb outs, and so on and so forth that are items, and I'm trying to understand if we already have a compliance to a lower speed than 50 kilometers an hour, what impact, aside from maybe a feeling, would a change in the speed limit actually have? So, like, seeing that collision data would be beneficial to that. Is that something that would be possible for council to receive? Should we not pass all 3 readings this evening at a future reading?
Through Deputy Mayor to all of council, thank you for the question. So is that something that we could provide? I'd have to talk to our Community Protective Services team and see what we could do. That's not something that I don't think we've compiled and overlaid in the way that's being asked tonight. It's not to say we couldn't. There would be some steps to that, and I would have to understand that better before I could inform council. If I could take a moment of dialogue on that, I think it's when we're talking about these network speed reductions from a traffic safety perspective, and this goes to my comment at the beginning, these aren't. It's important to not think of these as just one thing that influences the entire thing. So. This is a series of changes that helps promote traffic safety overall within the community, as you and I were talking about earlier with the overall impacts when an incident occurs. That this is something that promotes safety. We also are able to by implementing these changes, it leads to some call them it's the overall perception of the safety of the users of those in the active transportation space increases because they are able to utilize the space with some ease, knowing that there's a lesser speed out there. This gives our enforcement team some better tools to go out and have dialogues with offenders that are going well above either 40, 50, or other speeds. The traffic data, the collision data, while it's important and it does tell a story, is not the whole story within the traffic safety perspective, because we do part of the traffic safety program addresses areas where we're having complaints about issues, but though we haven't necessarily had an incident. Because we try and mobilize those funds that council gives us to address those issues, such as curb extensions, such as the speed reductions, the speed feedback signs. All these things work together. They're important together, not but as some of their parts, so to speak. I don't know if that helps council or helps the dialogue here, but that's some general thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I didn't really answer whether or not it would be available. I think that's probably has to be taken offline. I guess the next question that I would have is in reviewing the GIS data on all of the proposed roads. It captures the speed data for both the 50-kilometer sections and the sections that are playground zones, which are 30 kilometers an hour, already a current reduced speed limit. So in reviewing all of the playground zones that are in the catchment area, the average speeds were 33 kilometers, 35 kilometers, 35 kilometers, 39 kilometers, 39 kilometers, and 32 kilometers an hour. When I look at all the areas of 50, they range, again, essentially from as low as 25 kilometers an hour up to a few areas that do hinge close to that 50, but a majority of them actually sit within that 40 to 45 kilometer an hour. So my question would be, do we actually expect to see a resulting decrease in the overall average speed? So given that currently our 30 kilometer an hour zones are seeing average speeds in and around 35 kilometers an hour, if we reduce the residential speeds from 50 down to 40, and those residential roads are already seeing an average of 45 kilometers an hour, do we expect to see a reduction in that average speed?
Through Deputy Mayor, Council, like everything else, it's hard to predict exactly what behaviors will come from the change in that respect. I would offer that I wouldn't expect the numbers to go significantly down from those numbers if they're in the 30s already and we're seeing some 40s. I've looked at that data myself, so I would offer that when we're looking at the average, pardon me, excuse me. When we're looking at the published information, that's 85th percentile speed. So we do have, there is some statistical measurement within those numbers. Now, what we're publishing there is we're seeing a great deal of the volume that we're capturing is within the numbers that you outlined. I wouldn't expect those numbers to go down significantly. What we would expect to see, though, is greater awareness to the overall network 40 kilometers an hour, and again, going back to those intrinsic benefits of if there is an incident, more people are aware to be operating at those speeds. With the school zones, though, again, those are intended to remain at 30 kilometers an hour. So we're not intending to change those tonight. So if that's to answer your question, probably not going to see a big drop in those numbers if they're already operating that way. But there are intrinsic benefits that go to this that I outlined earlier.
Yep, thank you. So I have two other questions. The first will be in regards to Main Street. So my understanding is with the Traffic Safety Act, the implied speed limit on residential roads is 50 kilometers unless otherwise noted. So being that we would be reducing down to 40 kilometers an hour on the stretch of Main Street, we would then have to add significant amount of signage on Main Street because you would have to have signage essentially at almost every entry point is my understanding of that for a compliance perspective. Currently, on the proposed section of Main Street from the train tracks heading south, our compliance numbers on the GIS data are 39 kilometers an hour, 37, 36, 25, so this is when you start getting to the bulb outs, 28, 26, 26, 30, 31. Now you're beyond the southern reach of the bulb outs and you're into the area going into more of the, not Genesis, Glens area. And you rise to 39, 40, 42, 39, 39, 40. Given that there is already a significant reduction using the traffic calming that was introduced onto Main Street during the Main Street redesign, if we were to move to install 40 kilometer an hour speed limit signs virtually at every end of every block along Main Street, which my understanding would be around what would be required to comply with the legislation. We're increasing the number of signs on Main Street, which is potentially reducing views and reducing sight lines. And in addition to that, it could actually be encouraging people to achieve that speed. So when people see a sign that states a speed that they can go, people tend to look at their speedometer and say, well, I'm going to get to that speed. Today, we're seeing speeds of 25 to 30 kilometers on average using the traffic calming that was purposely designed for Main Street. So would the inclusion of 40 kilometer an hour signs on Main Street, number one, be a hindrance to sight lines, and number two, potentially have a reverse effect by encouraging people to reach a speed of 40 kilometers versus the 25 to 30 kilometers that they are currently doing today?
Through Deputy Mayor, thank you to all the councillors. Thank you for your questions. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of the Main Street, so we're not intending to put any additional signs for that. It's more so like we're just aiming to reduce that to 40 kilometers per hour, just to kind of follow the kind of the intent of kind of decreasing the speed itself. But like we were not intending to put any kind of signs there.
Through Deputy Mayor to all of council, the comment on will people work to achieve the speeds? Again, that's a difficult thing to predict. It's been my experience that clearly displaying that the speed limit is such a thing. I mean, when you have the traffic calming measures in place, people will drive to what's safe and operable within that location. Downtown has some intricacies, including the traffic calming, as I mentioned, but there's also an increased presence of people around, which also increases the driver attention when you go into those shared spaces. Does change. You'll often see, it's unlike driving on a highway where you have continuous flow of movement, you're trying to move from one location as quickly to the other, such as you might do on 779 or Highway 16A, for example. The use of 50th Street is very different. It's a destination location with many parking spaces. Your attention needs to be at those, of what's going on around you. The driving behavior in that location has changed significantly since we did the downtown redevelopment. I know prior to the project, I understood from some past town staff there was shortcutting happening through that location. There may have been some outlying speeding issues at that location. As you mentioned, our data is starting to show that that's not necessarily the case. In fact, I can think of a couple of times I've talked to residents where they wish they could still shortcut through downtown and they don't. They don't take their trailers through, is one conversation I had. So I would offer that that a 40 kilometer an hour speed change, or even further highlighting that, wouldn't necessarily provoke people to achieve that speed. They would still want us to operate, most people want us to operate in a safe and operable environment to what they're doing.
Thank you. And so I guess the question that isn't clear, I'm hearing we're not intending to install speed limit signs indicating that it's 40, but in order to change the speed limit and enact enforcement, would we not be required to?
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. I believe the manager's comments were outlined that we weren't necessarily going to increase the amount of signs, so we were going to replace current signs with the 40 kilometers an hour. During part of this work is we did complete a sign inventory of our speed limit signs. So we have approximately 80 signs to replace in town that we've estimated through this project. Those signs would be replaced with the 40 kilometers an hour signs. We wouldn't, unless there was a highway traffic act reason or a geometric reason to increase the signage along a corridor, we wouldn't necessarily do that. That's something that we would work with work during the deployment phase to see if we can make any changes. I'll offer that on occasion, a sign that was put in many years ago may have, that for example, a tree may have grown over top of it. It's not as clear anymore. We may want to change that. That's just a hypothetical. But the intention here is to work within the existing sign inventory and make it clear that the 40 kilometers an hour zones exist.
Thank you. I guess I'll have to keep my eyes a little more peeled, because on many of these roads that are identified for changes to 40 kilometers an hour, I don't recall seeing many even 50-kilometer-an-hour speed limit signs on them. So to precipitate a change in that speed limit, I would guess we would have to identify it. So, you know, even an overlay map, again, showing a location of those signs may have been beneficial in understanding that. Was there a comment?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The other addition I'll add to my previous answer and to the dialogue we're having is there will be some entrance signs to the town as you enter that you're entering a 40-kilometer-an-hour community. So there will be some notifications as you enter the town that the overall speed limit sign is 40. Pardon me. That the overall speed limit is intended to be 40 kilometers an hour unless otherwise posted. So that will also assist in I believe the notification that we're trying to dialogue tonight.
Okay, thank you. The last question that I have is in respect to public engagement. We heard that there was intended to be public engagement after this evening. I would argue, though, that that's not public engagement, that's public advisement. I'm looking to understand, has there been any public engagement enacted through this process, being that we have all 3 readings of this bylaw in front of us this evening? If we move forward this evening with all 3 readings, we are enacting something, and therefore it is happening in the community, and the communication strategy is an advisement. If council wishes to understand the public's acceptance and the public's support of this outside of, you know, election campaign and so on and so forth, what potential avenues could that take?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, maybe I'll weigh in on that one. I think just to provide some, I'm going to comment directly onto that. Yes, I mean, as laid out now, you know, we would be moving into advising or communicating the change. Respectfully, Deputy Mayor, this has been in the chamber a number of times, and I believe at each time we kind of indicated this would be the process. And I don't, I like to believe that if we were directed or instructed, so to speak, to provide, you know, a bunch of public engagement in advance, I like to believe we would have done that. So, you know, this has been a dialogue in the chambers a number of times, and just respectfully, I don't know that we've ever indicated that that would be the case, and we were moving forward that way.
Thank you, Town Manager. And yeah, I've got one more. I just want to follow up on that. The Town of Stony Plain does have a public participation policy in place that Council has improved so that we don't have to direct individual items. I'm just wondering where this one would classify on that strategy.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I can see the staff are just double checking some stuff, so maybe we can pause on that and get back to you during the meeting. So
okay, thank you. I do have 2 other questions now. Councillor Loynes, I believe you were first, then we'll go to Councillor Plechko.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My questions are regarding enforcement. In the lead sheet, it talks about conducting targeted enforcement in priority areas and during peak times. With changes to the bylaw being in so many different areas, would that not all be considered a priority area? And then my question to that would be, what would the cost or additional enforcement be in order to ensure that we are getting the priorities and peak hour times taken care of?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Loynes, I'll just generally speak about enforcement and how we do our speed enforcement throughout the community. So certainly with a change like this, as the team has indicated, there would be a grace period in terms of we would still be looking for speed. Likely if someone's going 70 in a 40 zone, we're in that period of education. We would educate the person, but that's going a bit fast. So we would likely do some enforcement there. With respect to priority zones can be classified in many different ways. 1, we're seeing it ourselves. 2, we're getting information from council, from residents contacting you related to zones that they see some deviation in. We've got the signs that certainly provide us with some of that. We've got automated traffic that puts some signs out in other areas too to provide us some of that data. RCMP certainly provides some of that data. So we definitely go out and we target when we get those complaints. To do we catch everyone? The difficulty with speed enforcement with marked vehicles is as soon as you have one person pulled over, then the next 50 are going 40 kilometers an hour. Until you disappear and come back again, it's a tricky thing, and that's where automated provided a little bit of a benefit. With respect to the target, we would definitely be looking at, through all of the metrics that we use to determine what areas we should set up, various types of speed enforcement. We would certainly work with our planning and infrastructure group to look at what those are. The cost related to it, I would say, is material, simply because that's part of our functionality as enforcement, and we would just put that into our, instead of going to this particular zone in this week, perhaps it's one that is covered within this implementation. So I wouldn't see much changing related to it. It's just a different speed that we're enforcing related to the streets of Stony Plain. So I don't see much changing. I don't see a big impact financially. We do have other relationships with other CPO groups, the sheriffs and the RCMP, so part of joint force operations would come into play. It would just be a different speed being targeted in the same community.
Okay, thank you. We'll go Councillor Pletchko and then Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I want to start off by saying I think what you've proposed is not a bad proposal. When I read it, I kind of felt that there would have been more to it than just a few of the roads in the community. I thought this would be encompassing of our community, which disappoints me a little bit because, as Councillor Meyer did say, I think we've all heard on the campaign trail that having a safer community, lower speeds in the community would be a good thing. So I don't think that we're in my part, I'm not questioning that part of it. There is some things in here that I do question because, you know, I've lived in this community for a long time, and you talk about replacing only a few signs. I don't know how many people in our community would really know that there's a 20-kilometer speed zone in an alley or a 15-kilometer in a parking lot. I think that's other areas that we need to target. So, you know, when I look at a $50,000 budget to do it, I'm not sure how we enforce all of those areas without being very specific in our community. The other thing that I wonder about is, you know, when we have that conversation with our community around a safer community, it usually is focused around RCMP, sheriffs, and our CPOs. And I see no consideration in here for any of that to be added to the traffic enforcement of what we're trying to do here tonight. So I'm kind of looking for maybe some direction from administration. How do we address, it's easy to put the speed limits in. How are we going to enforce all of this? And at what cost to our community is that going to come? Because as Councillor Laurie suggested earlier, a lot of the areas already are substantially doing the speed limits that we're talking about. And yet we're sitting here talking about adding some costs, and not all the costs are in front of us yet tonight.
Through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Pletchko, so thanks for your question. So in terms of the enforcement, so as I did mention before during the presentation as well, so we will gonna be, I mean, there's education piece which we're gonna start that pretty soon, right after the approval of this the bylaw once this happen. So which will gonna give us sufficient time just to kind of, I know it's kind of more information sharing, and then again once the implementation will gonna happen, the enforcement piece will gonna help actually, and also like the first month we're gonna be more so as a grace period where we're gonna be more kind of education and kind of information sharing as well, which will gonna help to educate people in terms of how they need to follow those kind of reduced speed implementation and whatnot, and that is how this thing will gonna implement it. So I'm hoping these things will gonna kind of somehow give or provide leverage to kind of educate people in the right direction, and then that's gonna implement it accordingly.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Pletchko?
I don't think so, and I don't think that was quite answered the way I was looking for. I'm being very specific as to how there's certain costs associated with doing with what we're doing. There's certain costs associated doing what we're talking about doing today. And yet, we only see one cost associated with it, and that's a $50,000 impact to changing signs. But there's got to be other costs associated, and maybe our community and protective service manager can answer a little bit of that, because we can put it in, but then there's the enforcement part of it. And if most of our community is already doing the speed limits, what's the implementation of having to just change signs?
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor, through to Councilor Fletcher. I can speak a bit to that, and then, I believe our General Manager, Caps, can probably add to that or speak a bit further. So, I think what, a couple of things I guess I'll provide some comment on. So, one of the things we hear quite a bit about, and I know Council would, I believe, agree, I think I've heard it a bit already this evening, we receive, I don't say tons, but I'd say numerous requests for, people are going really fast down here. People are going really fast over there. We're working on one right now, came in on 628. Speed coming in from Range Road 12, coming into Stony, coming into 779. I'd say we're consistently have some special area under some review of sorts, and I know the GM can probably speak to it. I'll ask the question myself and get, we've conducted this many, radar sort of tests. We've had patrols in the area for this many hours, and so on and so on and so on. And as well as a reference tonight was the speed monitoring that we've been doing. Again, that's something that's been something we've been doing more of, I would say, in the past 5 years than we were doing in the previous 5 years, giving us some of that data, understanding that. You're right. So there's a bit of a conundrum exists, because as quoted earlier, and I know my staff will tell you, the vast majority of people travel within the speed limit. Doesn't matter. Pick 40, pick 50 zones. Vast majority are staying within speed limits. Not all, and there's always outliers that are way on the other side of the bell curve. So that in itself provides a bit of a conundrum. The data will tell you that the majority of people driving in Stony Plain travel at or near or below, frankly, the speed limit. Our residents, your residents, all of our residents, so to speak, will highlight those that don't, and then look for some control, some enforcement, some measure to make that not be the case. And we've been responding to that for years. Bulb outs are one, trying to change limits, so on and so forth. And yet the calls, the questions, the concerns still come in. So what does that all add up to? I probably just added it up to nothing in a way. But what I do know is those calls will continue to come in. We will continue to respond. It does take time. It does take effort. Corporate plan, you'll see from time to time, increased CPO, more enforcement here, more enforcement there, that sort of stuff. I know that we've partnered a little bit lately with the sheriffs and brought them in on certain things, on some speed stuff. That seems to have gone well, but it's a bit of a work in progress. And as I think the General Manager of Planning and Infrastructure indicated earlier, it's a bunch of these things all add up to what we believe should be a safer community. No silver bullet, no single answer can solve it. Respectfully too, I would say, we try this, we try that. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we adapt. And it's almost an ongoing cycle. And this is a step in that cycle. I'll stop there. I don't know if the GM wants to add any of the specifics.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, through to Councillor Pletchko, just a quick addition. As stated earlier, I don't believe the costs are going to be material. I don't think you're going to see a corporate plan process where we're asking for $100,000 of extra dollars to enforce a speed limit change. The speed limit is a speed limit. It doesn't matter if it's 40 or 50. We still have to go out and we still have to provide a safe community. As was stated earlier, the majority of our community is already under the speed limit, so the compliance level is high. So we're not going to be run off our feet chasing down speeders. I think, as the CAO stated, the ones that we currently have some issues with, we're going to continue to have issues with. It's just they're going to be 10 kilometers higher on their speed limit when we catch them, basically. So the fine level will be higher, which means they might comply a little bit quicker with respect to it's not 50 and you're going 20 over, it's actually 40 and you're going 30 over. 30 over is a bigger fine. 30 over is a bigger responsibility when you have to go to court. 30 over gives a whole bunch of different provisions for our CPOs to enforce something. So I think, as the CAO did state, it's one step. There's a bunch of other steps. More money, more people coming in, catching the speeders. Certainly we can do that. But I don't think the speed limit should be the impetus for that extra dollar value, because we could certainly do that today. We'd probably still have the same issues or the same frequency of speeders in our community. So it's a very difficult problem, but I think it's a low percentage problem, and we're just trying to capture a low percentage of those that are out in our community speeding and taking some liberties with respect to their vehicle. The 40 kilometers an hour just makes our community safer, because it's proven the lower speed causes less damage to vehicles and injuries if someone is involved from a pedestrian perspective. So reason why we have 30K in a school and a playground zone. You get hit at 30 kilometers, there's still some damage, but you're likely going to walk away from that. 40 kilometers just supports that theory. So certainly it's not going to burden our CPO group. We're going to continue to enforce the speed as we currently do today. It's just a different speed that our radar is going to be set at.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and I certainly appreciate the conversation that's gone on this evening. Much of what I've wanted to say has come out in pieces, and I've been sort of scratching out and then want to extend, rewrite, and that sort of thing. So please bear with me here, but I will start by saying certainly I'm supportive of what's before us. I do have a couple of motions, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and to administration, just awareness that I would like to bring forward at the end of some comments. The question we heard this evening, or one of the questions, was why reduce the speed limit when it's mostly being followed? And I certainly appreciate the question being asked and the dialogue from the CAO to administrative staff. And I think there are some really key points that have been hit. One, the general manager of Community and Protective Services just spoke to, but on March 13th, spoke to a piece of it, and that is the deterrent. March 13th, the provincial government increased fines and so on for minor and what could be considered major traffic offenses. And in doing that, they said they were hoping to ensure safer driving conditions for everyone, and they saw those increased fines as a deterrent. And so certainly, there's an observed need, not just in Stony Plain, but across the province, for the province to take some of that action. Certainly, increased penalties, we would hope, would lead to an increased deterrent for those that are traveling at that higher speed limit. I think there's comfort knowing that we, for the most part as a community, have safe drivers that do want to live in a community that is livable, is walkable, has opportunities for active transportation, but we do also have outliers. And those are the ones that I think this proposal that's before us, these outliers are the ones that I think this most closely aligns to. Community feel is something that we've talked about in these chambers a ton. And what makes us uniquely Stony Plain, and what do we value as a community? We talked about this in relation to community safety, that sometimes just the visibility of our enforcement services officers creates a feeling of safety for residents that maybe they aren't innately feeling when they've been a little bit more invisible. Not that they're not present, they're just not seen, and in part that helps them do their job. But there was this suggestion from many within the community that they weren't feeling safe, in part because of that lack of visibility. You know, I asked earlier the question about public engagement, and was for a very, very specific reason along 44th there outside Jutland, down through Silverstone and so on, and that was because I came across some social media comments this week that relate to that section of our community. And I'm just going to read a couple of them that popped up. But I reached out to the town 2 years ago, advocating that they need to consider reducing the speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour along 44th. Another poster said, I don't even let my 12-year-old take the bus anymore because of what happens along that street. And again, that was in response to 44th. And I think some of those comments highlight that we have residents who maybe aren't feeling that measure of safety. We just came through an election. And I don't remember, I think Councillor Meyer may have spoke to this because he has advocated or had conversations around this during the election campaign, but I pulled up our election debrief notes that administration had compiled for us, and speed limit reduction was on there. We heard, some of us, if not all of us, through the election process that this was important enough that my colleagues on council brought that forward, and I was able to echo those sentiments from the community. And I continued to go through. I went specifically looking for that one because I knew it was there, but I think I found 7 or 8 others, and that's just a cursory glance of that report. Racing, St. Andrews noise, we heard the reduced speed limit, how it can lead to reduction in noise. Photo radar back, more enforcement, issues with stunting, overall community safety related to traffic. And so I do feel that this is coming forward in response to what council has heard, even though there may have not been direct engagement with the community that led into this. I do believe that that has occurred. I just pulled, and I don't think I need to do this, but you know, it's something that I looked up in preparation for this evening, but I looked for some data that speaks to the reduction of speed limits. And a lot of the research that's been done is highway, specific highway speeds, but we have a neighboring community, not immediate neighboring, but one within the Greater Edmonton Ring that did some work in this area and recorded some statistics specific to 50 kilometers an hour down to 40 kilometers an hour. And, you know, we may not have the data here, we may have a little bit of a different context, but I do think some of the numbers that they brought forward in their report speak volumes. And so going from 50 kilometers an hour down to 40 kilometers an hour saw the number of collisions reduced by 25%. Again, this is one report, one municipality, and I know there may be some other numbers out there, but I digress. The second number I wanted to point it out was injuries and fatalities related to those collisions were down 31%. And so, you know, going from 50 to 40, I think that information in and of itself lends credibility to the conversation that we are having this evening. And so from an enforcement perspective, from a deterrent perspective, from a community feel perspective, from what we've heard from residents and so on, this has my full support. I do, however, want to bring forward a couple of amendments, and I've gone back and forth on whether I do these as a 1 or 2 or 3. And so what I think I will do is I'll bring the first 2 together, but as an itemized amendment, a first and a second sort of contained there. And should a member of council wish to split that, then it will make it easy to do so. And so I'll make the motion and then I will speak to it if that's okay, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So I'll move that the speed limit be reduced to 40 kilometers an hour on, and then number 1 is 44th Avenue between South Park Drive and Veterans Boulevard, and 28th Street from 44th Avenue to Highway 16A. So this speaks specifically to that eastern section that we referenced a little bit earlier.
Sorry, could you repeat the second, please?
Didn't get to the second one yet. That was all a part of the first one. The second part there was, sorry, I'll actually just read it again. 44th Avenue from South Park Drive and Veterans, yes, 44th Avenue between South Park Drive and Veterans Boulevard, and then 28th Street from 44th Avenue to Highway 16A. So that's that section that runs along the storm management pond there. And then number 2, 50th Street. I didn't know how to note this. The map looked like it was from the railway tracks. The closest crossroad there is 47th Avenue. So all worded as 47th Avenue to Highway 16A. And on 41st Avenue between 50th Street and 51st Street. And so just for that context, I know those are a lot of numbers. I'm going to jump back to our council package, and I will pull up the map on page 76 for context. Oh, and I do apologize, I missed a very small section in part 2. And so would look to include 44th Avenue as well from 48th Street to 50th Street. My apologies there.
Councillor Anderson, maybe in summation, I believe everything that you've noted has been all areas with the exception of Range Road 11.
Yes, sir.
Would that maybe be a better way?
So, no, I appreciate it. I think the reason that I included it this way was they are 2 separate locales. And I'm not concerned with 11, and this would allow, if someone was comfortable with 44th on the east side of town, but not that section on the west side of town, one of my colleagues could split the motion if they would choose to do so. And that was my intention about not debating them together.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Before I accept those motions, I do want to recognize that we are in first reading of a bylaw that we do have an opportunity to send back to administration for other adjustments and amendments that can be brought forward for a future second and third reading that would only moderately impact the timing of implementation. I've heard other things this evening in regards to the commercial industrial area, other things this evening in regards to current signage locations and changes in those, other things in relations to collision statistics and other engagements to a public engagement and survey. I'm just wondering if maybe you would consider a motion to refer this back to administration if we can get beyond first reading, refer it back to administration for a contemplation of all of the items that have been brought forward by council to be brought forward and addressed in second and third reading at a different council meeting.
I appreciate that, Chair. I will suggest, though, that some of those other concerns that were brought forward are not specifically shared by myself. And as this exists, if these changes were to be passed, I would be comfortable moving through with all 3 readings this evening. I did have, just as a note, an additional motion that I would, if this does pass all 3, that I would like it to come back not in 5 years, but 2 years, so that this council, who's done a lot of work on this particular file, would have an opportunity to engage the community and provide feedback during this council term. And so when we talk about some of those other areas specific to the commercial area in the business park and so on, I think we have an opportunity to see how this works and what would be considered my priority areas, residential and some of the local collectors, and we would have an opportunity to review that during this term. So certainly, you know, I could withdraw this, we can pass first reading and I can do it for second reading, but you know, I bring it forward now because these are the ones that I've heard from community and that I would like to see us move forward with. Again, the community engagement, I think I spoke to that. That's not a concern for me. I think the community has spoke volumes. The North Business Park, I think there's been a question. You know, some aren't comfortable with the answer, but I think I am comfortable with the answers we've received to move ahead. So,
thank you very much. Administration, just looking for a question of clarity here. So these amending motions are now on the table for the bylaw under first reading. Should a motion to refer then be made, which I believe could be made at any point in time to send this back to administration, that would then require all 3 readings of the bylaw to come forward again with unanimous consent at a future meeting. Is that correct?
Through the Deputy Mayor, that is correct.
Thank you very much. With that, Councillor Anderson, I would ask if you would have the grace to withdraw these, and we'll vote on first reading and then put them back on the floor after first reading, so that if there is a motion to refer that is successful, we don't have to come with unanimous consent for 3 readings in one meeting.
Certainly, I think that would be fair. I will express this just as a caveat that I would hope that my colleagues on council would show me the grace to not present any amending motions that would supersede what I've proposed here prior to having the opportunity in second reading to present them again. So I cannot ask that as a guarantee, but I will put that on the floor as a hope and a request of my colleagues. With that being said, I will remove my amending motion for the time being, and we'll look to bring that forward in a few minutes.
Perfect. I appreciate your willingness on that. With that, I'll just look for any other quick questions of clarity or comments from council prior to voting on first reading. Seeing none, I'll call the question on first reading. Excellent. Thank you very much. So with that, then I will go to Councillor Palechko for second reading, and then I will go to Councillor Anderson for the amending motions.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. That Town Council gives second reading to bylaw 2737/G/26.
Thank you, Councillor Palechko. Councillor Anderson, I'll give you the opportunity to speak. I think we have those amending motions so they can be displayed, and I'll give you an opportunity to speak on them.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the grace to allow that for me. I'm just looking at what we have in front of us, and I think what's listed there as item 3 would be inclusive in the second bullet point. So 50th Street from 47th Avenue to Highway 16A, 41st from 48th between 50th and 51st, and then 44th from 48th to 50th Street, to look at that as one combined item, I guess, so 1 and 2. Thank you. And I will look to Ledge Services. Do I need to read this in a second time here?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Anderson. Sorry, do you need to revisit?
Sorry, do I need to, because I had made the amending motion during first reading, we're now in second reading. Do I need to read the amending motion again to have it on the floor, or can we just refer? I'm good either way.
Moved as read.
I think you're good to say it's
okay
as presented.
Perfect. So I will again put the motion on the floor as presented to reduce the speed limit to 40 kilometers an hour in the areas referenced on the screen, and would like to take a minute to speak to those.
Absolutely. Please go ahead to speak.
Thank you. And sort of the justification for these is a little bit different, and again, which speaks to my desire to speak to them separately. But I'll start on the east side of town. So this is number 1 as written in the amending motion. And so in that section along 44th Avenue, I believe I've counted 3 crosswalks and no less than 3 school bus stops as well. Living on that roadway or just off that roadway, I also know that the intersections on 44th and Silverstone becomes very, very slippery for about half the year in the winter months, and I've gone through it myself. I've actually gone out after hearing a collision, and I've helped a young mom and her newborn daughter get out of their vehicle into our home as a safe place to warm up while they were waiting for enforcement services and so on, who ended up coming to meet them, the ambulance, at our residence. And so certainly living in that area, recognize some of the challenges that do exist. And that's as it exists today. We've heard from residents. I read in earlier some comments on social media that were specific to 44th. We know that there is some additional development going on right now in this area as well. that we're looking at the addition of another entryway off of 44th into sort of that Sun Meadows east area that extends beyond Jutland Crescent. And so we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5, 6 intersections within that area. And driving it regularly, I know that we're often behind people trying to stop and turn and so on. You know, if we get past traveling from east to west, that 28th Street corridor, we have a storm pond there. And then we have a field that's currently zoned for high density, so to increase the number of residents that are in that area directly across. We have some land that council has had discussions going back, I think, almost 5 years that we've looked at for some sort of recreation amenity and so on, which are going to add additional entryways onto 44th Avenue. And so all of those things, you know, considered, I certainly appreciate that the houses here aren't fronting, but we do have a significant number of foot traffic and active living that happens along this section. And I feel that that 40 kilometers an hour speed limit would be appropriate here. The addition of 28th from 44th to the highway, I think just makes sense if the rest of it is 40 around there. Driving that area as well, and I often take that out to the highway to go to work. Again, often people crossing that roadway, sometimes marked, sometimes not, to get to a bus stop or to cross for employment or otherwise. And so we see lots of traffic traversing 28th Street there as well. And so I think an opportunity to hear from the residents in that area, or to show that we've heard, and to include those in the 40 kilometer an hour speed zone would be appropriate. Jumping over to the east side, and this one, you know, I back and forth a little bit on, but when I think about the context of what our council has discussed over the last few years, we've asked for some flowering pots along here, the larger concrete ones, because residents weren't feeling safe walking to and from the downtown to Heritage Park, or coming through sort of the north area there behind A&W on the trails, and then crossing by the campsite and so on. We've heard that this is an area where residents do feel quite uncomfortable, and at times prefer not to walk that way because of the speed of the traffic along that roadway. And so with the number of events that are hosted at Heritage Park, with the hope continued hope, I guess, of drawing residents from Heritage Park into our downtown core, whether it's going from other areas of our community down to Heritage Park for a movie, for summer sessions and otherwise, we want residents to be able to feel comfortable and confident traversing their own community by vehicle, but also by foot. We have the scooters in town. I think we had an e-bike the other day for rent. You know, we have all these goals of, you know, promoting healthy living and active transportation, and those only work when residents feel safe. Whether the data we collect on speed limits flushes that out or not, the feel that we're hearing from residents, or I should speak to myself, I've heard from residents as they currently don't feel that way. And so that would be sort of Main Street extended. The inclusion of 44th through the commercial area, if anybody's driven through there, you're often waiting for someone turning somewhere, whether that's into Tim Hortons and it's backed up, or whether into Friesen and it's backed up, or trying to come out of Friesen's and onto 44th to get to the highway and it's backed up. We see a considerable amount of traffic through there, and I think 40 kilometers an hour along 44th makes sense. Council has prioritized additional pathways, I believe, in our 2026 corporate plan, if I'm not mistaken, to have some trail systems on both the north and south of 44th here, which means those pathways, those trails, are going to have crosswalks where those commercial areas are. And so just another opportunity, to slow down people turning on and off that 44th Avenue. Another opportunity where I think it would be prudent of us to reduce the speed limit to ensure, as those numbers flushed out earlier, that even when there is a collision, injuries and fatalities are reduced by 31% with that 10 kilometer an hour reduction in the speed limit. And so I really appreciate what's in front of us. I do think we have an opportunity to extend this based on the lived experience of our residents. And again, I come back to that idea that we want our residents not just to be safe, but feel safe in their community. And with that being said, look forward to the discussion and would encourage my colleagues to support this amending motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. Looking to council for any questions, comments, or debate on the amending motions. So seeing none on that, I do have a question to administration in specific to 44th Avenue from Veterans Boulevard to South Park Drive. This roadway has been a concern for me as well. However, I'm not sure that any amount of speed limit change, aside from maybe a drastic one down to 30 or less kilometers an hour, would prevent the intersection issues. Namely, the intersection of 44th and Jutland Sun Meadows, where we've seen some pretty significant accidents over the last while. The intersection, the only entrance in and out of Silverstone, which is an odd offset viewpoint intersection. And then the intersection with pedestrian crossing at 28th Street. My question to administration is, outside of a reduction of a 40 kilometer an hour to a 40 kilometer an hour speed limit, what other improvements or traffic safety measures have been considered, are being considered, or could be considered, namely for these three intersections?
Through Deputy Mayor to all of council. You're correct. We've heard through our traffic safety program, there have been questions specifically around I recall off the top of my head, near 28th Street, the crossing at that location. I know we've heard from time to time some observations from residents around the Jutland location as well. Right now there's, was just talking to the manager of engineering here. I don't believe we have anything firm planned for those locations, but speaking broadly, the next steps would be, if we were to implement any further traffic safety initiatives, would probably be more of an information, speed feedback information tools that we could implement out there before considering any engineer control, so further curb extensions or geometric changes. That said, I don't have an exact list of what we would do out there. Those are just some high-level considerations, but you are correct that the speed is just a component of, the speed limit changes are just a component of what options are available to us.
Thank you. And further to that then, what have been the considerations of implementing a four-way stop at the intersection of 44th Avenue and Jutland Ridge and Sun Meadows, a three-way stop at the entrance from 44th Avenue to Silverstone, and a three-way stop at 44th Avenue and 28th Street?
Through Deputy Mayor to all of council, I can say that that three-way or all-way stops have not been considered. Those are not our first choices for any sort of traffic calming improvements for several reasons. The key point to a traffic control device implementation, such as a stop sign, is it's warranted. If it's not going to provide the desired results, which is which can be a litany of reasons, you can want to. You can have a conflicting amount of cross traffic between similar volume roads that necessitates the crossing. You can have, in some cases, a need an auxiliary street where you're trying to control traffic flow for this is often done for construction projects. You'll often put a pinpoint four-way stops so that you can control the left turn movements. Typically, they're not effective for traffic safety improvements, because if they're unwarranted, over time, the drivers will ignore them or do what we call rolling stops. It can be difficult for enforcement to stay on top of those locations if they don't warrant the location. So I will say that they're not being considered for those locations at this time. Those are tools that we would appropriate in the appropriate situation. But at this time, I don't believe there's any intention to do that.
Thank you. I find part of that comment interesting in regards to the enforcement on the rolling stop sign, because it would be similar to the enforcement of a change in a speed limit. So my further question is, and I haven't actively reviewed it, but I believe in our transportation master plan, 44th is contemplated for widening and the inclusion of four-way signalized intersections in some of those locations. Is that correct or incorrect?
Through Deputy Mayor to all of Council, you're catching me flat-footed off my memory, though I do have the TMP open. I am trying to just go refresh myself, if you can bear with me. I do recall a widening or a facility improvement in that location as the area develops. I don't recall the timing of that. I believe it was in the, again, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's within the medium term is what the TMP outlines. And from that, as the growth would necessitate, and I believe we've had this dialogue with council before, as the growth in that location necessitates, there would be reviews on the intersections itself to see if further traffic control is needed. That may include traffic control devices like signs, or there could even be streetlights. It's not just development that drives those enhancements, though usually facility widenings are driven mostly by development or some sort of increased use of the facility. We can see things like traffic lights going in to improve if we're seeing more pedestrians using a crossing than we've seen in the past. We can see those for enhancing left turn movements. Again, I don't want to prescribe one particular thing here. It's something that, as with a growing community, we have to keep an eye on. And as we have outlined in this presentation and through the TMP presentations and through other dialogues at council, we do have other triggers beyond just just one point of input from the community about when we have to enhance these facilities or do those traffic improvements. So I would say that we would appropriate the appropriate response when necessary, and those would be included as things we could consider.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just look across to council for any other questions, comments, or debate in regards to the amending motions. Seeing none, Councillor Anderson, would you like to close on the amendments?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I've had a first this evening. I've never had this on council before, but I think it maybe is a hint that I've spoken a lot. Dry mouth. I feel like I'm having a tough time here. So I feel like in my preamble there, I had an opportunity to speak to it in terms of what I had hoped to say. But I do want to encourage my colleagues one final time. You know, we do pride ourselves on community feel, and these are two areas I think we can enhance that community feel based on feedback we've received from residents in our community as a way to enhance the speed reduction measure that's before us this evening.
Perfect. Thank you very much. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor on the amendments? And that is carried. So we're now going back to the main motion for second reading that was put on the table by, I believe that was Councillor Palechko. And so looking for any other questions, comments, or debate in regards to that motion or any other amending motions. Councillor Niebegal.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have to give Councillor Anderson a break, so.
He needs his tall glass.
I just want to share my thoughts in regards to this, and I appreciate the dialogue that's gone around here and the thoughts and questions that have been asked. Definitely has my brain working here. First thing that comes to mind is when I'm looking at some of the information that colleagues have also helped direct me to, recognizing that the average speeds that are being reported, there's obviously a range to arrive at these speeds. And so I don't think anybody's questioning, and I appreciate to hear that majority of our residents are meeting, if not exceeding, our expectations for speeds on our roadways. As administration has pointed out, I really appreciated that enforcement at 50 is enforcement at 40. So that really put into perspective to me that we're doing this. We're just now doing this with a lower threshold. I do appreciate and I deeply respect that public engagement is and should continue to be a priority for us. And we have referenced in chambers here multiple times that we have just come off one of the largest public engagement opportunities, and many of us engaged in conversations around speed. And this is our gift.
I don't know where that came from, but thank you.
That this is a concern in our areas, and it is those excessive outliers, and I don't ever want to be, how do I say this? I would prefer to be more proactive than reactive, and to wait for collision statistics or death statistics before we look at reducing speeds in the community. So I do support what's on the table.
Excellent, thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, or debate? Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Wherever the water came from, thank you. I very much appreciate that. I do have one more amending motion, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I did allude to this one earlier. It speaks to the review time of this particular bylaw. And so we'll put the motion on the floor and then we'll gladly speak to it. I'm looking at page 80, just for those following along of our agenda package. This is section 4.0.0 review, or 4.1.0. Currently reads, this bylaw shall be reviewed within its 5th year, being 2031, or as deemed necessary. And I would like to make the motion this evening that section 4.1.0 be amended to read that this bylaw shall be reviewed within its 2nd year, being 2028, or as deemed necessary.
Thank you very much. I will accept that. Just as an opening question to administration, this is an amendment to an existing bylaw, the Town of Stony Plains traffic bylaw, I believe. When is the traffic bylaw set to come back to council?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, that bylaw is scheduled to come back in the 5th year, being 2028.
And as part of that bylaw review, would this amendment that is then attached to the bylaw be considered in that review?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, yes, because it becomes part of the bylaw overall.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that. And if that's the case, I'm just looking for some clarity that it is very clearly indicated here that it's 5th year 2031. And so if this is going to be included in the bylaw review in 2028 as part of a larger traffic bylaw review, I'm more than happy to rescind the motion that's been made. But I do want to ensure that whatever avenue we choose, that this does come back to this council within this council term, and I do feel quite strongly about that. So again, I will look to yourself, Mr. Deputy Mayor, administration for clarity, but would be happy to rescind this if it's going to be included.
Thank you. I'll just go to our legislative services.
Thank you. Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Anderson. So the original bylaw would always take precedent. Amending bylaws is a fairly new practice for the town. We adopted that with our last procedure bylaw amendment. So some of the amending bylaws probably don't need a review date because they automatically become part of the original bylaw. So that's just a clerical thing that we will capture in future amendments. Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, it is my understanding, I'm just going to look for a confirming head nod from administration that this will be included as part of the larger traffic bylaw review, and I will gladly rescind the motion that I have made, but I do want to just speak to it very, very quickly. And I think there is importance here for this particular council who has had an opportunity to work on this file, engage with residents on this file, be a part of that, to weigh in on it prior to the end of this council term. Certainly there are things that, you know, we get to start, but we don't always get to be a part of the process of review. And this is one that I feel like there's several members of our council have felt strongly about this. And I think it would be important for us to have that as an opportunity. As an aside, I do wonder, as part of our council and the community initiative at our Downtown Thursdays and so on, again, this isn't a directive, just food for thought, that this might be one of those items that we can present to the community in that forum, A, for information, but B, just to collect some additional feedback as we move forward. So just my thoughts on where the intent of the motion was coming from, but appreciate the clarity, Deputy Mayor and administration, that this will come back in 2028. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. So again, we are still on second reading and looking for any questions, comments, or debates on second reading. Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Again, just for clarification, when we talk about enforcement, I'm going back to page 89, where there's the nice little arrows that tell us what the implementation timeline would look like. And going back to further conversations we've had when we are talking about any type of bylaw change or rule change, and that grace period that we talk about, what are we looking at for a grace period? Because when we look at the implementation, it says communication early June. It's been mentioned by the manager. It'll actually be the end of May, the enforcement plan, the signage change, and then monitoring. So in there, where would the grace period come from, and what are we looking at a timeline for said grace period?
Through Deputy Mayor Laurie to Councillor Loynes, thanks for your question. So, yeah, the grace period is more so just to kind of give a leverage to the residents if there is any, because the enforcement, to apply the enforcement right away may get like penalize them right away. So just to give them a little bit more time to kind of educate themselves and to kind of get familiar with the changes and whatnot. So that's only, that is the piece which will going to help just for before implementation.
Thank you. I think the question was more to specific timelines. So when would the change be implemented and when would the enforcement period occur?
Yeah, thanks for the clarity. So yeah, this will going to be more like as July of end. That is what we're aiming for to kind of implement that. And the grace period will going to be month of August. So by the end of August, so the actual full enforcement will going to happen.
So essentially, for clarity, then, the intention would be signage would be installed, grace period would be provided, and enforcement of the new speed limits would occur at the beginning of September.
Thanks for your question to the Premier. So the signage changes were going to happen before July 31st, so July 30th. Yes, and then after that, the enforcement, like the grace period, we're going to start, and then September 1st, we're going to be the actual full enforcement.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, clarity, understanding, or debate? Seeing none, I am inclined to support the change, although I do have some challenges with the way that it has come forward and the process. And I just want to speak to those quickly before we do move on. You know, it was mentioned earlier about public participation, many forms of public participation. Council has a public participation policy. It is in place for this exact purpose, so that council doesn't have to do specific engagements. Now, this is up for review. This policy is up for review this year, so that's great. That's going to give us an opportunity to talk to it. But as part of the standards, the town will conduct public participation approaches when transacting council priorities as outlined in the strategic plan. This was an item that was identified in strategic plan and so on and so forth. So to come forward with all three readings in one meeting, despite the fact that, yes, there have been reports brought forward in council before, This one really easily could have been a survey put out on our website asking, for agreement in certain areas. We could have potentially even dealt with the issue as to whether 44th should have been 40 or 50 or so on and so forth prior to this evening. But again, that's part of our role as well, is to have these discussions and go forward with those. I am challenged with the use of time, effort, and dollars that have been put forward in this in order to make this change when we have identified many other traffic safety improvements that I do feel would have actual results. I completely agree that lower speeds are higher safety. I just don't necessarily know that this change is going to result in an actual change of the speeds that we see. Compliance is there. Compliance will likely happen, but we're fairly close to it already. So, again, any amount of improvement in safety, again, is better. But when I think $50,000 would be close to a set of LED pedestrian flashers. It could be close to some of the concrete bollards for pedestrian crosswalks to shorten the distance that children have to walk across streets and those type of things. But it is about balance. We have many tools in our toolbox in regards to traffic safety. This is one that's come forward for that. I would like, and I'm hoping that administration can provide, even if this is passed and brought forward this evening, I would like to be provided, and by email would be fine, a GIS map of the signage locations, to understand where the signage will exist within the community, where those signs are being changed and so on and so forth. Little less concerned about it now with the amendments that were made, because essentially we have very few areas outside of major roads such as Golf Course Road, Veterans Boulevard, 49th Avenue and 79th Avenue that would not be 40 kilometers an hour. I think essentially Range Road 11 and then the North Business Park would be the only areas that would remain untouched from my understanding of the way that this is provided. Which again brings me to another point of the mapping. There was no indication in regards to Golf Course Road, Veterans Boulevard, 49th, 79th, as to the fact that those would not be changing versus the residential that is changing. So like the map didn't delineate those. The map only delineated the ones that were proposed to change to 40 and to maintain 50. So there's a little bit of a lack of clarity and an understanding as to, for instance, would Golf Course Road remain 50 and 60 in some areas, or would Veterans Boulevard, same thing, and so on and so forth. But I think we got to that understanding through other questions. So I'm hoping that map can be provided. And then I am asking as well for maybe future consideration for collision data. Understanding where in our community collisions are occurring. We know collisions are occurring. We do hear that from the RCMP inspector. We hear that from our enforcement services. Even if it was a once a year item, if there would be a way that council could see some type of an overlay map to understand, are we seeing multiple collisions? The entrance to Jutland Sun Meadows at 44th Avenue, I'm confident this winter alone there were multiple collisions and quite serious ones. Ones that destroyed property, ones that probably likely resulted in injury and so on and so forth. That's an intersection that concerns me. I don't think a change to a 40-kilometer-an-hour speed limit resolves that concern. But I don't have the data in front of me to understand that. And so through this process, I think it's highlighted a lot of those challenges, and I'm hoping that can result in some change in ways that moves forward. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor of second reading? Perfect, thank you very much. Moving on with that, in order to complete all three readings of a bylaw in the same evening, we do require unanimous consent. I will go to Councillor Niebergall for the motion for unanimous consent.
I move that Town Council give unanimous consent to consider third reading to bylaw 2737/G/26.
Thank you very much. No comment, question, or debate on that, I believe. Are we able to debate unanimous consent?
I've never been asked that before, but Deputy Mayor, I would say yes.
Okay, excellent. Councillor Anderson?
Perfect. Not necessarily looking to debate it, but I just, based on the implementation timeframe, I do want to encourage my council colleagues that although it may not be a perfect bylaw, I think it's a really, really good start, or sorry, I shouldn't say start, next step for us in terms of traffic safety that feel for our residents in our community, and do hope that this can go forward this evening through all three readings with the understanding that within a very short period of time, we'll be out at various community events over the summer, which provides, I think, the perfect timing for this to happen. I do worry a little bit that if this is delayed this evening, that that time frame shifts and we can't take full advantage of what the spring summer offers us in terms of the communication of this. And so just my encouragement to my colleagues to move this forward this evening.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. Any other comments, questions on unanimous support? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Okay, and that is carried with unanimous consent. Moving on to third reading, Councillor Loynes.
Town Council give third reading to bylaw 2737/G/26.
I thought it was on. Thank you very much. We've had significant discussion, debate, questions, and amendments, and so on and so forth, so I'll just look for any final questions or comments. Councillor Plechko.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, administration, for bringing this forward. I think we're setting a precedence in our community of what we think is safety, and we've heard it loud and clear. When you talk about Midsummer Thursdays, I think there's a great opportunity for the booth to say, Stony Plain, 40-kilometer zone. And I think it will create the conversation that we need, which will allow us to have this discussion back in 2 years, which is at this council table again. So third reading, I think I would encourage everybody to support this, as it is a good step within our community, and we've heard this loud and clear from our community. So I look forward to everybody supporting it.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments, debate, closing? Perfect. Seeing none, again, I will echo the sentiments. Thank you very much to administration for all the work that's gone into this over the time period. I think it's well over a year since it was first sort of identified and brought forward. I do think there's been significant work done on it, and despite the numerous ways that other things could have transpired in it, I think we have a good solution to add to our toolbox for community safety here. With that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Perfect. That is passed. Seeing that we are about 2 hours since our last recess, we'll take a quick 10-minute recess before we come back for our remaining business items and council discussion. Excellent. Thank you very much. We're back from recess here. Moving on in our agenda to our business items. First business item being 9.1, the Town of Stony Plain audited financial statements. Administration, anything to add to the presentation that council received this evening?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. Earlier this evening, you did hear from our audit partner, Phil Dirks from Metrics Group, and had opportunity to ask questions. We now ask, as per MGA Section 281, that Council accepts the financial statements as presented. Subsequent to the approval, the approved financial statements will be submitted to the province by April 30th for the annual submission process, including the financial information return.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll go to Councillor Anderson for the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'll move that Town Council accept the Town of Stony Plain audited financial statements for the year ending December 31, 2025 for information.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments, or debate from council? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to echo what Mr. Dirks spoke to about our staff. You know, he does a lot of these presentations, and I think every time Mr. Dirks has been in chambers, he speaks highly of the support and the speed and the promptness and the dedication and thoroughness that our staff provide him in terms of answering questions, finding documents, whatever it is that they're looking for. And so I think that bears recognition this evening, and just want to extend gratitude to all of those involved in taking care of the town's finances. We heard this evening that we're in pretty good shape, even debt servicing being well below what he would consider a healthy margin. And those are really positive steps, especially with the growth and some of the capital infrastructure projects and so on that we've undertaken. So gratitude to the Manager of Finance, gratitude to our General Manager of Corporate Services and all those involved. Well, and our CAO, we should say that as well. Leadership from the top down, but gratitude to the teams for ensuring we're well taken care of here in town.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. You took exactly what I was going to say before I called the question. So I will call the question. All those in favor? Wonderful, and that is carried this evening. Thank you very much. Councillor Loynes, go to 9.2. That is the Community Social Development Roundtable report. Councillor Loynes, being the council representative on the Community Social Development Roundtable, if you'd like to make the motion.
Town Council accept the Community and Social Development Roundtable Community Report for information.
Excellent. I'll go to administration for any questions, comments, or information to council on top of the presentation we received this evening.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Nothing to add to the presentation. This was the Roundtable's opportunity to share their work with Council. Administration has opportunities during the quarterly reporting process to provide our updates. As staff liaison, it is a privilege and an honor to serve and support the Roundtable in the work that they do. Thank you very much, and we do recommend approving the report or accepting the report for information this evening.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments, debate? Yeah, Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My only question is if Councillor Meyer will send me those questions, and I will get him an answer next week after we meet, for sure.
Wonderful. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'm actually going to get all my council discussion out of the way, so I can pass on that here in a minute. But just want to extend our gratitude and appreciation to CSD, the general manager, and the team that look after community and social development. I think, Mr. Deputy Mayor, in your words, they're a small but mighty team, and they have such a critical, crucial role in our community, ensuring everyone feels safe, valued, and a sense of belonging here in Stony Plain. And I think they do an amazing job of that. And so just want to extend our gratitude to the team that are involved with CSD in the Roundtable.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Echo those sentiments. Anyone else? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Wonderful. And that is carried. That brings us to the last item on our agenda, being council discussion, as we have no closed items this evening. I'll start with Councillor Plechko.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would just highlight some opportunities that I had to participate in some community events around the Tri-Region this past week. Last Monday, the 20th, had an opportunity to join the faith community at the tri-regional, the annual tri-regional community prayer breakfast, which was a great opportunity to share some fellowship and see some of those community churches and some of their efforts around the community highlighted, as well as the opportunity to also join our volunteers at our Sips and Slices volunteer celebration event held on last Wednesday. So, and then just a personal one, I got to, I would highlight my opportunity to watch some great sporting this weekend. The Golden Gloves were held in Spruce Grove, and we had a few community members participating in that as well. So, other than that, I just actually have one other issue I would like to make administration aware of. Actually, you know what, I'll just include that in an email to Public Works.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Councillor Anderson. Councillor Niebergall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to highlight, piggyback on a couple things that Councillor Meyer mentioned there, but I will add my attendance at our very first tri-municipal council meeting, which was really great to be a part of. We didn't see significant change on our council, but our neighbors saw some change and the other one sees some significant change. So it was nice to come together to kind of hear each other's priority areas and kind of start to look how we can effectively move forward together in supporting each other in growing our communities. Additionally, I have given many shout outs to the Pioneer Museum. The Johnny Cash and Buddy Holly concert is sold out. So if you didn't get your tickets, too bad. I'll give a report. I'm very much looking forward to it. And also just a shout out to that Pioneer Museum board. Every time that I go there, I just leave with my heart happy. Like they are, I don't even know. I would be able to report, actually find out what the volunteer hours are in that organization. They are growing. They've constructed a new building on site, and so the man hours that are going into that project right now are unreal. But just to sit with them and hear their vision for the place of the Pioneer Museum in our community and how it can be a part of the community, continue to be a part of the community. I just love being there. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the Pioneer Museum, you definitely should swing by there because they're a great group and they put a ton of work into that space. I think that's about it.
Excellent. Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Feels like forever since I've been here, but then I remember 2 weeks ago I was at the ASHA conference, so I was not able to attend council. So on that note, yes, I was at ASHA, which is a housing association where we got to talk about all different types of housing, and I look forward to bringing information forward to my council colleagues. I also took in the Inclusion Alberta Family Conference, where we talked about the different ways that you can make a more inclusive community and what that means and can look like. So that was a great conference, definitely would recommend it. Had the opportunity with you, Deputy Mayor, to attend the annual basketball tournament for our Spruce Grove Stony Plain Filipino Community Association. What a great turnout. There was 17 teams, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that participated in a 2-day event, and the way they go all out, holy man, talk about a community with a heart of gold. Everything they do is about each other and their families, and it was just great to be there to participate and hand out trophies from everybody from about 5 years old up to over 40. I'll just say it that way. What a great opportunity. And as well as the Smile Cookie campaign kicked off today. So go to Tim Hortons, all in Stoney and Spruce Grove this year. They're hoping to raise $60,000 for mental health. So don't forget to smile.
Excellent. Thank you very much. For myself, I have a couple of questions. First question to administration. We've seen a change on South Park Drive on the pedestrian crossing. We now have a new overhead crossing. 2 questions in particular that I have on it is we have 2 different color of signs. So we have some yellow signs and we have some white signs. I'm just wondering if we're going to see those change to a consistent. And then also I noticed that in changing to an overhead LED with the side LEDs, there's actually been a removal of the central one and the concrete median. Just wondering if that's going to be replaced or if that will no longer be, and then any other changes that are occurring.
Through Deputy Mayor to all of council, thanks for the questions. Yeah, I did notice the different sign color myself today when I drove by it. I believe that was just a miss on the sign crew for implementing. They may have just grabbed what they had at the time. We'll make sure those get changed out to a consistent color. We do like to get them into the yellow reflective ones so that they're very visible. So I'll just say loosely the team is aware of that. With respect to the light changes, you're correct. There was a center pylon that we had out in that location. It has been removed. The overheads are an enhancement of the previous pylon that was there. So at this time, I'm going to confirm with the team that I don't believe there is intention to put it back, but I'll confirm that after this meeting. Additionally, this is the first part of a couple of changes we're doing at that intersection. There are some geometric changes coming on 43rd Avenue that will see some changes to how the traffic flows in that location to help limit some left turn conflicts that we're seeing because of the closeness of some of the accesses. That will be happening in the summer as soon as things get underway. We do have things procured and ready to go. We just need to go ahead with the contractor.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Look forward to continuing to see the improvements there. I know that was, again, in that traffic safety, just like we talked about this evening, a very important intersection that was noted. Second question I have this evening is in relation to our public golf course. Obviously, the weather this spring has not been favorable for a golf course. I think we got the driving range open for a day before the snow came again. Obviously, we know that provides some financial implications to the golf course when we have operating days interrupted by weather. Do we have any kind of ideas to impacts on the golf course and any adjustments that are going to be made to mitigate the late start to the season?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, through you and to the rest of council, course will open on Saturday, so that's number one. That is a bit later than usual. However, the weather on the weekend just was not conducive. I'm happy they didn't expose the greens. Those are expensive pieces of grass that may have been damaged, and it's not necessarily the weather, but you get someone walking on it in that cold temperature, it certainly impacts, and it takes a long time for that to come back. With respect to late start, we've had a very good start in the pro shop. So I don't think you'll see any impacts to the late start. You probably will see tee sheets likely being sold out more for the month of May than what they may have been if we would have started 2 weeks earlier in April. So I think people are just itching to get out. So you probably see busier tee sheets for a longer period of time at the start of the season.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's it for my questions. Definitely do have a couple of recognitions and shout-outs. It's been a busy last couple of weeks, and it's going to be a busy couple of ones coming up. So, we've had the Tri-Regional Faith Breakfast. We had the Kickstand grand opening in Spruce Grove, which is a regional initiative. We had the Chamber on Tap, helping celebrate the Sawmill's 50th anniversary. We had the Sips and Slices volunteer appreciation event. The Spruce Grove Stony Plain Filipino Community Association basketball tournament, which, yeah, if you want to attend an awesome sporting event, boy, do they know how to party with playing basketball. That was fantastic. And big hopes. It was held at Memorial Composite High School. They are hoping to move it to our recreation center the next go-round, so next year in April, which would be some fantastic community exposure to that event, and it's quite the party. So hopefully they'll touch in with the town on that one. A couple other things to remind, we did have an opportunity with both High Park School and with the town staff to participate in our new Team Up to Clean Up, which is a replacement for the Pitch-In Week. A fantastic initiative. I believe it runs year-round now and offers community groups opportunities to earn some grant dollars or bursary dollars for teaming up to clean up in certain areas in the town. So just encourage any organizations out there who are looking for an opportunity to contribute and give back and potentially get a couple dollars in the pocket to go towards some of their initiatives, to get in touch with the town and be a part of the team on that one. We've got a couple of great events upcoming. We have this weekend on May 3rd, we have the Light Up Your Life Hike for Hospice that's being held out at Chikaku Lake. And we also have the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples Walk and Recognition event that is occurring here. It starts here in the town, just by Tim Hortons along 28th and 44th, or 43rd, I think it is, and then walks along the highway down to Skydancer, and there is a recognition event done at Skydancer as well. So a great opportunity to participate in that and learn more as we walk a path of reconciliation. Also, again, a huge shout out to our Smile Cookie campaign, which kicked off today. I believe that also runs until May 3rd. There are 7 Tim Hortons locations now that are participating in that in Spruce Grove and Stony Plain. And all of those funds, I think Councillor Loyne said, I believe their target was $60,000 for youth mental health through the Westview Health Foundation. So again, some great initiatives in our community, some great opportunity to participate and get involved. And thankfully, by the forecast, it looks like we'll be able to do that in some sunshine finally. Seeing that, we have no closed meeting items, so I will call our meeting adjourned at 8:36 this evening. Thank you all for all of your hard work, both administration and council. Have a good evening.